Chapter 391 Mi Zhu's Plan. Zi Zhongdong, don't think I'm dealing with you, this is really an evaluation given by Zi Chuan. If you don't believe it, you can wait for Zi Chuan to come back and ask Zi Chuan. Lu Su saw Mi Zhu's embarrassment at a glance, so he laughed. It's easy to say, it's easy to say. Hearing this, Mi Zhu was also in a good mood. His younger brother could get Chen Shi's evaluation like this. Maybe there were really things he didn't know. Chen Shi didn't say anything nonsense. Mi Fang was able to follow Liu Bei when Liu Bei was the poorest, and when Cao Cao admired him and named him Peng Cheng Xiong, he did not waver at all and directly followed Liu Bei, who was beaten at that time. In addition, Liu Bei has been in a state of upheaval for more than 10 years, and Mi Fang has not given up. From this point of view, it is hardworking, and there is no problem in being loyal. However, the incident in Jingju obviously lowered Mi Fang's score, and the history books record that Mi Fang and Guan Yu were at odds. But looking back at how Guan Yu treated Mi Fang, you know that this has nothing to do with Guan Yu's lack of communication with Mi Fang. According to Guan Yu's loyalty, he was definitely brotherly enough for the elders who never left Liu Bei at the beginning. According to the historical records, Mi Fang committed the crime of not completing the preparation of military supplies and supplies at that time, and accidentally burned the collected grain and grass baggage. How to say this crime? It was absolutely cut on others. The three armies did not move, and the grain and grass went first, which was not a joke, but as a result, Guan Yu reprimanded a few words in the official history, asking Mi Fang to go back and continue to prepare grain and grass. You must know that at that time, Mi Fang was both the grain supervisor and the governor of Nanjun, and anyone who has seen the map knows where Nanjun is. That is a big rear. Guan Yu put him there may also have the intention of protecting him. After all, not everyone can think that Jiangxia County will be gone. Nanjun was directly besieged. First of all, no matter when the grain supervisor is a fat difference, especially when the background is very hard, the grain supervisor is a big fat difference. The second master gave the position of the grain supervisor to Mi Fang. Mi Fang made such a big mistake. The second master just scolded 2 sentences without pain. If this was according to Guan Yu's normal practice, it would definitely kill. From this point of view, the second master actually took into account the old feelings. But the problem is that the second master can't speak, and his face is extremely majestic, and Mi Fang himself is afraid of Guan Yu's majesty and doesn't communicate much with Guan Yu. Naturally, he was frightened by Guan Yu, and he was terrified, and he turned back to betray the country and trapped himself. I can't beat it. He was persuaded by Dr. Ren to surrender. All in all, this is a tragedy caused by mistake, and there are too many unexpected factors in this tragedy. It is precisely because of this series of factors that Chen Shi feels that in fact, Mi Fang can be transformed. For example, changing to a boss. The second cargo Gan Ning is very good, often doing things that are not done by people, and carrying private goods on sea ships. Isn't that the talent of the crew? Let's say ballast. The most important thing is that Gan Ning is neither majestic nor domineering, often makes mistakes, and gets along well with a rich second generation like Mi Fang. After all, Gan Ning rarely has the habit of looking down on anyone. So Zichuan has already made arrangements. Mi Zhu was relieved a lot. Zichuan means to let Zifang go to Gan Xingba to report. After all, Gan Xingba needs to do business with the natives, and he is also bold, although Zifang is not good at business for you. But after all, after so many years, doing business with the natives is still easy to catch, plus he also knows some civil affairs, and he can also do martial arts, and the navy needs such a person. Lu Su said with a smile. Anyway, as Chen Shi said, Mi Fang was not needed in the naval war. Gan Xingba. Mi Zhu thought for a while. That majestic man was indeed a general, and he was in charge of the navy alone. He was bold and easy to get along with, and it was indeed a good place to go. As Lu Su said, that's fine, I'll go inform my brother about this, let him go to Gan Xingba's navy to report, and cause trouble for me at home all day long, and start a family early. So, what should your family do? Lu Su asked. Unlike other families, the Mi family started from 3 generations, and in Mi Zhu's father's generation, it was also an ordinary wealthy businessman, and after Mi Zhu took over, it reached the level of the 5 wealthy merchants like Divine Help, and the 3 brothers and sisters in the family. Mi Zhu ran the business, and if Mi Fang went to the sea, then the Mi family would have 1 Mi Zhen left. Throw it to Zai's house, let Zhana and her learn piano, chess, calligraphy and painting, poetry and songs, women's black tea art and so on. Aren't the 2 girls of the Zhen family also learning with Sede recently? Throwing it over, there happened to be a companion. Obviously, Mi Zhu had already figured out how to deal with Mi Zhen's affairs. Oh, it's up to you to say it then. Lu Su didn't answer the question at all, and stuffed people with Sai Wenji. You thought you were Li Yu. There is no need to trouble Zijing in this matter. My family Zhana and Missa have a good relationship, and when Zifang and I leave, they will definitely have a falling out and live with Missa. Mi Zhu smiled and said. Mi Zhu couldn't be clearer about his sister's character, a good girl in front of people, and 2 people after people. losing her father and mother at a young age, relying on the little sister who was taken care of by her eldest brother. She gave whatever she wanted, and she was already blessed by the ancestors of the Mi family. You'd better pay attention to Yang Xiao, he has a criminal record. Lu Su reminded that the sheep collar that abducted Miss Xiao was not a good person in Lu Su's eyes. How can it be like this? Mi Zhu's eyes were burning with flames, and he could see that he was really spoiled by his sister, but it was obvious that there was a problem with his previous education. Otherwise, he would not have worried Mi Zhu. It's up to you. I remember that Zichuan seems to have said that he wants to open a women's class and let Cai Zhaoji help train it. But this matter has not been put on the agenda. After all, you also know that other women can go to Mangxianglu to learn piano, chess, calligraphy, and painting as long as they want, and our daughter and sister definitely can't, so Zichuan suggested so. Lu Su looked at the beam and said, "No problem. Just a little money. As long as he can educate his sister to be the same as Cai Zhaoji, he knows everything in poetry, etiquette, scriptures, piano, chess, calligraphy, and painting. Mijou will not mind investing in it. Such a big person, actually like a little girl. Mijou sometimes worries about how his sister should marry." At the beginning of the Chinese New Year, Mijun was pulled to be a female official, and Mijou did not have the intention of finding a family. But Liu Bei seemed to see his niece's expression, and Mijou knew that his sister would probably take a few more years, and others who were so old could get married. Then this matter depends on your sister. Lu Su handed over the troubles that Chen Shi handed over to him to Mijou without thinking. He really didn't want to have more contact with Sei Yang. Having said that, Mrs. Chen has been in contact with Cai Zhaoji a lot recently. What do you think? Chapter 392 Unreasonable Assassination. Chen Shi looked at Dao Qian's grey hair and the figure of Liu Bei holding a cane to greet Liu Bei, and sighed silently. The years are really unforgiving. I've seen Dao Gong. Liu Bei took Chen Shi and his party to salute Dao Qian. Xuanda is reasonable. Dao Qian hunched over and bowed to Liu Bei with a cane, just like the name of the tiger prison back then. Although he is like a wind candle in his old age, he still retains the bloody nature of a military general, and probably this period of killing made Dao Qian feel the atmosphere of fighting while being powerless. Dao Gong. Liu Bei stretched out his hand to help Dao Qian, and he clearly felt that Dao Qian's time was running out. Ha ha ha, it doesn't have to be like this. Dao Qian laughed, but he clearly felt a kind of sadness of the hero's twilight. Come with me, these two behind you, Chen Zichuan, I recognize, this should be Zhou Wenhe, who designed Cao Mengde. When he has seen Dao Gong, Zhou Shu bowed calmly. Xuanda asked the Danyang soldiers to follow your troops stationed outside the city, and you can bring the civil officials and generals to come with me. Dao Qian nodded at Zhou Shu, and then said to Liu Bei, which was already clearly handing over military power to Liu Bei. Dao Gong should see if the illness is good first. Liu Bei stretched out his hand to support Dao Qian, and then gave Hua Tuo a look. No need, I know my body myself. It is not an exaggeration to say that I am terminally ill. I originally thought that Cao Mengde and I were like-minded, but it's a pity. Dao Qian was obviously a little disappointed when he said this, but compared with when Cao Cao broke his beliefs at that time, it is obvious that he has seen a lot of a way. When he... Have you noticed that it is a bit strange? Chen Shi said in a low voice, although Dao Qian killed the Zhuzhu family disobediently, it would not be so deserted. You see, in addition to the guards of the Dao family, there are also Chen Deng and several courtiers of Dao Qian, but there are actually few other families. If Dao Gongzu dies at this time, who will benefit the most and who will be the most troublesome? Zhou Shu silently looked at the city of Sharpie and said, You mean that someone is going to put Dao Qian to death at this time? Chen Shi frowned. If Dao Qian died at this time. Although Zhuzhu Liu Bei still received it, the blow to Liu Bei's reputation was a bit bigger, and more importantly, there were many people who had excuses. Don't worry. I have already made arrangements. With Zilong and Zhongkang by my side, even if the arrows rain down, it is impossible to hurt Dao Gongzu. Zhou Shu said indifferently, although I don't know who is fanning the flames behind the scenes. But this is an opportunity for us. Although the conversation between Chen Shi and Zhou Shu was very low, it was also very far away from Zhao Yun and Xu Chu, but both of them were deaf and sightful, and after listening to Chen Shi's question, they both moved closer to Liu Bei calmly. Bang! With a soft sound, several huge black crossbow arrows attacked in the direction of Dao Qian and Liu Bei. Zhao Yun and Xu Chu both made a move, directly pushing them away with their internal energy, and then Zhao Yun jumped towards the city wall with a heavenly sword, only to see that Zhao Yun had not yet fallen on the city wall. A large rain of arrows shot in the direction of Zhao Yun and Liu Bei and others under the city. Zilong, be careful. Liu Bei reacted at this time and yelled. I saw Zhao Yun move a few feet out of thin air, and directly dodged all the crossbow arrows. Then the right hand of the heavenly sword slashed in the direction of the city wall, and more than a dozen sword lights instantly killed the soldiers who were manipulating the crossbow and preparing to attack Liu Bei again. Chen Shi opened the folding fan and waved the arrows coming from the sky, and the wind was fierce, directly blowing some of the arrows in one direction, and the rest of the arrows were all shot down by Shu Chu wielding a big sword. Then Shu Chu brandished a big knife and rushed towards the black-clad troops that poured out of the city gate hole, opened and closed, ignored the close military formation of the other party, and killed dozens of people, and then the Tiger Guards rushed up, directly defeated a group of assassins, killed nearly 100 people and captured several people. Jioshu picked up an arrow, frowned, and looked at the tip of the black-blue, strong poison. But it's very strange, I know this is going to happen, but it's different from what I estimated. A hidden Taoist priest in the city gate cave, with Zhuo Si's disciple Asin, silently watched Liu Bei's subordinates eliminate those dead soldiers, and constantly evaluated the strength of Liu Bei's subordinates. It seems that the mandate of heaven should be on Liu Xuande, and the rest should be Cao Mengde, and the Battle of Zhuzhou is equivalent to saying that Liu Xuande's mandate plundered Cao Mengde's mandate, so what if he killed a mandate of heaven? The Taoist priest hidden in the city gate hole was faintly excited, and he found that he might know how to restore the glory of these immortals to himself. Whether it is Cao Mengde or Liu Xuande, it is obvious that they have the ability to counter us. Zhuo Si bets on Liu Xuande. Li Jin is optimistic about Cao Mengde. Both of them are cautious people, plus a group of civil servants and fierce generals. Ordinary assassination methods are by no means effective. The Taoist priest thought carefully about the strength of Cao Cao and Liu Bei, and silently gave up the idea of continuing to tempt. It seems that he can only go to another destiny. I hope it is not Yuan Benchu, otherwise, he can only weigh it with Cao Cao's scale. The Taoist priest glanced in the direction of Zhao Yun, then quickly withdrew his gaze, and quickly left with the eager to try. Zilong has been injured. Liu Bei saw Zhao Yun jump down the city wall and look up and down. He said he was fine. Zhao Yun said calmly, then frowned slightly, and swept the qi machine over the city gate hole, and then wondered if he was mentally allergic. Let Xuande laugh. Dao Qian was not frightened by the scene in front of him at all, but still had the mind to joke with Liu Bei, but it was obvious that at the moment of speaking, a cold light flashed in Dao Qian's eyes. The Zhuzhou family was really ignorant. No matter whether it was provoked or not this time, Dao Qian, who had already been mostly in the soil, did not have the slightest idea of mercy. Zhuzhou Xiaoxiao is many, and it is inexhaustible. In this way, Liu Bei and Dao Qian completely ignored the assassins in front of the city gate and indifferently led a group of their men towards the Sharpie government office. He, what did you just say? Chen Shi asked after Liu Bei. This matter is wrong. There is a great deviation from what I speculated. That is to say, someone intervened, but why is it intervening now? And since it intervened, it was unreasonable to just test it. Jioshu said with a slightly gloomy expression. Cao Mengde and Yuan Benchu's words, if they do it, it will definitely not be so hasty. What is the purpose of this kind of behavior for other princes? This kind of intensity does not look like an assassination at all, but a temptation. Liu said in a low voice. Don't worry about so much for now. This matter was pushed to Cao Mengde's head and revealed, we can create whatever conditions we need, just kill the family. Chen Shi said calmly, we don't need to hold on to this matter, it's better to work hard. Chapter 393 Entering Zhuzhou. As Chen Shi guessed, after Dao Qian and Liu Bei arrived at the government office, they took Liu Bei to the seat, sat on the same level as himself, and then hesitated to order Chen Deng to summon the large and small families of Zhuzhou. 23 WX. Xuande, what do you think of Zhuzhou? Dao Qian toasted Liu Bei with a glass of wine, and then said with a smile. Zhuzhou is worthy of being the richest place in the world, and it is not comparable to ordinary states and counties. Liu Bei said realistically, then they are all plains, and they cannot be defended for a long time without a strong army and good generals. Xuande is finally no longer looking at things now. My Zhuzhou is still not as prosperous as Mount Tai. I think when Xuande entered Mount Tai was impoverished, there was no one to want, there was no food, and Mount Tai had surpassed Nanyang to become the richest state and county in the world in just 3 years. Dao Qian's eyes flashed with a touch of remembrance. Things are different. At the beginning, Liu Bei was just a small deflated person when he was in Hulao Pass, although he had the name of the clan, but he didn't even have any documents, and now Liu Bei is already a prince with hundreds of thousands of elites, a population of 5 million, and a famous prince in the Central Plains, and he Dao Gongzu is already declining. This is largely due to the ability of Sichuan. Liu Bei laughed and said, without Sichuan, I, Liu Xuande, would not be able to have such smooth sailing. Saying that, Liu Bei picked up the wine glass and toasted Chen Shi with a glass of wine. If it weren't for Xuande Gong, I, Chen Sichuan, might not be able to show what I have learned. Chen Shi said calmly, and then said to himself in a voice he could hear, Only Xuandagong will indulge me like this. Dao Qian sighed slightly when he looked at this scene. The harmony between the monarch and his ministers is the fundamental factor in the maintenance of a foundation. Chen Deng took the people of Zuzhu big and small families to the seat expressionlessly, and it was obvious that many of them were a little cringeful when they saw Liu Bei and Dao Qian. But no one pointed out all this at this time. After a group of big and small families gave Dao Qian and Liu Bei a salute, Dao Qian did not blame the heads of those families in person, but just calmly drank and feasted with Liu Bei. Soon the song and dance banquet was over, and Dao Qian ordered someone to bring the Zuzhu seal to Liu Bei. Soon Sun Qian followed his teacher Kang Chenggong and walked up behind Zhao Yu, who was holding the seal of the governor of Zuzhu, and when he saw this scene, Jioshu and Li Yu looked at each other and breathed a sigh of relief. This uncle was here. Even if Dao Qian died on the spot, no one could splash dirty water. Sun Qian was not inconspicuous. But when it comes to doing things, it is really flawless. Dao Qian was also stunned when he saw Kang Chenggong appear, and then a smile appeared on his face. Kang Chenggong actually came here in person, humble and honored. Can you be a witness for me and Xuanda, and someone will gossip in the future? Then he asked someone to take a seat. Place it on your right side yourself. Let Zheng Xian sit down. It seems that Kang Chenggong has a good impression of Xuandagong. It should be said that at the end of the Han dynasty, these people who were famous for their teachings and classlessness were very fond of Xuandagong. After all, Xuandagong's vow was to open the wisdom of the people and complete the supreme ideal that countless sages had not completed since the Shang and Zhou dynasties. Chen Shi chuckled in his heart, and sure enough, after telling Zheng Xian about the opening of Minji, Sun Qian would be able to pry out Zheng Xian, who had been closed in history and studied the classics, from Zuzhu. Guan Ning, Wang Lai and his party can also get started. With these people, there will definitely be no moral loss. I came here to be a witness, and I also want to see what kind of person Liu Xuanda is, who vows to open up the wisdom of the people of the world. Zheng Xian's words were not polite, but there was a clear bias. Kang Chenggong laughed. I, Liu Xuanda, also want to see that kind of world, since the sages have gone forward and worked hard for it. Now I, Liu Xuanda, can see a glimmer of hope. Why don't I go all out? Liu Beilang smiled and saluted Zheng Xian. The Han dynasty was not divided into civil and military affairs, and the 6 arts of the gentleman were even more indispensable, and Zheng Xian was the one who collected its great achievements. So naturally he also had some understanding of the knowledge of physiognomy. Looking at Liu Bei's generous face, he laughed. I heard that Xuandagong has an academy, and there is still no dean. Can you let the old man recommend himself? If Duke Kangcheng is willing to come, I will sweep the bed to welcome him. Liu Bei was happy, and then said extremely solemnly, he now lacks a truly great Confucian-level figure to sit in Taishan Academy. Okay. Zheng Xian nodded, and then looked at Dao Qian. Dao Qian picked up the seal of the governor of Zuzhu and gently stroked it twice. Xuanda, I hope you become the governor of Zuzhu. Dao Gong. Although Liu Bei had been mentally prepared, he was still surprised to see Dao Qian hand over the seal representing Zuzhu's power so directly, and he was a little overwhelmed. Xuanda, don't refuse. I, Dao Qian, am already powerless. I want to find a successor who can inherit my ideals before I die. Xuanda's attack on Yuan Highway before did make me slightly dissatisfied, so I had less contact with Xuanda, and even looked away when choosing a successor. Dao Qian said without hesitation, should I say that people are dying? Xuanda is frightened. Liu Bei said with a wry smile, what should Yuan Shu say about attacking Liu Biao? Even if there is no Cao plan, Liu Bei will not easily let Yuan Shu achieve his goal. Cao Mengda is ambitious, although he has good deeds, but he can't suppress his tyrannical side. But this person is firm. I don't know if this matter can be improved after that. It's a pity. I really thought he was the most suitable person at the beginning. Dao Qian shook his head, picked up the seal representing the power of the governor of Zuzhu, and forced it to Liu Bei, and at this time he said everything clearly, and there was nothing to taboo, and Liu Bei would not care about this. Take it, whether it is said that the virtuous live in it, or the capable live in it, or the Han family is owned by the Han family, you Liu Xuanda is the most suitable candidate. Don't refuse. Take care of my 2 sons for me. Take care of the people of Zuzhu. Don't let him suffer such a disaster again. As for my ideals, don't mention it. Dao Qianlang said with a smile, the only ones who couldn't let go when he was about to die were his 2 sons. As for the like-minded heirs. Preparation. You will live up to Dao Gong's trust. Liu Bei hesitated slightly, but still took the seal of Zuzhu Mu. As Dao Qian said, whether it was Bade, Beatsai, Bineng, or even Bloodline, he was the most suitable, and after reaching out to take the seal, he solemnly said, Dao family, I, Liu Bei, are sheltering day by day. With Xuanda's words, I am relieved. Before that, I have sent the recommendation document to Chang'an, and I think Xuanda will be able to get His Majesty's appointment letter soon. Liu Bei didn't say anything from generation to generation, and Dao Qian also knew that it was not necessary, and who could guarantee what would happen after 100 years? On the other hand, Zheng Xian was doing the work of a historian, recording this matter completely on the book, and then writing his name. If anyone in the future troubled Liu Bei with this matter, Zheng Xian would be able to use the document guaranteed by his own name, and it would be difficult for anyone to find Liu Bei's trouble in this way. Congratulations to Xuan de Gong. Chen Shi stood up with a smile, and then the entire mansion was full of congratulatory sounds, and it was obvious that many family heads were relieved a lot, and Dao Qian's high pressure was too terrifying for them. Chapter 394. The change is still too small. Dao Qian also clenched his fists to congratulate Liu Bei, and then claimed that he was unwell and asked someone to help him leave, but in fact, he handed over the scene to Liu Bei and let Liu Bei solve the aftermath. Everyone, since I, Liu Xuande, have received the seal of Zuzhu Mu, and you also recognize me as Zuzhu Mu, then please listen to me. Liu Bei stood up and raised a glass to everyone on the field, and then said after drinking a glass, Xuan de Gong, please speak. Chen Deng was listed for the first time, and now he is not only Dao Qian's old minister, but also the representative of the first family in Zuzhu, so naturally he must stand up at this time. I am new to Zuzhu, there are still too many things to understand. Please maintain the operation of the Zuzhu government office first. As for Cao Jugao, and the assassination incident before Sharpie, I don't want to kill again. If there is a re-offending, it will never be merciless. Liu Bei first looked at Chen Deng in a gentle voice, then looked at the heads of the families present, stayed on some of the heads of the families for a moment, and said in a stern voice, Xuan de Gong Rend. Chen Deng bowed his head and said, and then all the people in Zuzhu were all called Xuan de Gong Rend, and it was obvious that the head of the family who was trembling and worried about when the butcher knife would come down finally took back the heart that jumped to his throat after Liu Bei opened his mouth. After that, it was naturally the host and guest who had fun, and Liu Bei stayed overnight in the Zuzhu government office that night, and since then Zuzhu has returned to Liu. In the mansion of the Feng family in Zuzhu, Chen Shi sits on the main seat, which has been given to Chen Shi by Liu Bei, and the Feng family has been erased during the last Dao Qian cleaning, leaving a vacant house. Gong Yu. I'm sorry to trouble you this time, Chen Shi said to Sun Qian. Zichuan joked, if you hadn't asked me to ask the teacher to testify, I would have forgotten that I could use this as evidence. Sun Qian smiled and said, the teacher has a good impression of the Lord's approach, otherwise he would not be ready to go to Mount Tai as the dean of the academy. But if you don't invite me, Duke Kang Cheng won't come out. Chen Shi shook his head, I asked you to find what I was looking for. The news of Uncle Ji is a little uncertain, but Sun Bofu is indeed a brave soldier, and as for the news that Zichuan wants about Jingju entering Sun Bofu's side, there are only a few pieces. Sun Qian said with some incomprehension. Tell me. Chen Shi frowned and said. One is Liao Gongyuan. There is also Wen Zhongye, and there is another uncertain, and he is still young. It was Pang Digong's nephew named Pang Shiyuan. Sun Qian pointed out these still unknown figures. Oh, I know. Chen Shi nodded. Chen Shi's face under the light could not see joy or anger. Shu Yuanji is good? Still studying at Lumen Academy. But I haven't heard of any outstanding performance. Sun Qian shook his head and said. For this young man specially told by Chen Shi, Sun Qian really asked Yi Ji to help pay attention, but unfortunately, as far as the current situation is concerned, Shu Shu is also a Chinese person. Ha ha ha, Gong Yu is blind to this. Chen Shi laughed and said, Shu Yuanji is not a talent of heaven and earth, but he is definitely not comparable to an idle person, he is just dormant now. At the fastest, it will be a year, and at the slowest it will be 3 years. Sun Qian was obviously a little disbelieving. But Chen Shi didn't say anything more, and after chatting with Sun Qian about Qingju and Zuzhu, he sent Sun Qian out of his own courtyard, and some things needed to be thought about by himself. Chen Shi silently thought about Liu Bei's existing strength and the strength he would have in the future, and the more he thought about it, the more he felt that something was wrong, and the contrast between the civil and military officials was strangely similar to Cao Wei's original appearance. Chen Shi pinched his eyebrows, he needed to think about it, what to do next. If this was still not a big change, Chen Shi felt that he needed to make some drastic moves. His goal was to end the era of war as soon as possible, at least to end the war of the Han dynasty. As for the rest of the places, let them go, how long they can fight, how much they can die. First of all, as far as I can see now, the scope of my influence has indeed changed, and the scope of my influence has indeed been affected, but this degree of influence does not affect the overall trend. Chen Shi pinched his eyebrows and thought that he had discovered such a situation very early, but it was precisely because he found such a situation that he had the confidence to help Liu Bei. Otherwise, if you really let your mana be boundless and you couldn't stop the monstrous numbers, Chen Shi would struggle with something, calmly wait for 3 points of the world. From the current understanding, the correction exists, but it cannot reach the exact same degree as the original history. it can only be said that it is smoothing the curve, and there is no parameter for the troublesome things now, otherwise it should be able to be calculated, and the degree of historical correction will disappear completely. Chen, she was obviously a little helpless. Obviously, for this world, the established historical law feels that this world can still be saved, otherwise there will be no strange situation of correction. Of course, this is to say, Chen Shi broke this era not strong enough. If it is bent to a certain extent, it stands to reason that history is like embarking on another road, and the world can only give up treatment and be dragged by Chen Shi to open a new chapter. This is obviously not completely bent to a certain extent, and the current correction is still very effective. Otherwise Sun Ce would not have been able to obtain Liao Li and Wenping so smoothly. Didn't I just follow Lu Su and Gan Ning, and I will make up for it when I turn back? That is to say, to open a new chapter, I need to abolish the general trend of history first? Chen Shi thought helplessly according to his eyebrows. In addition to Cao Cao and Liu Bei, it may not matter who is in the throne of Sun Ce and Sun Quan. Cao Cao and Liu Bei, the only heroes in the world are the king and Cao. Chen Shi thought of this sentence as a convulsion. Maybe it was really like this. I seem to understand something. If this is also the general trend, it is equivalent to doing nothing. This is obviously impossible. I saved Li Yu just to see what impact the protagonist of the turning point in history will have if he does not die. But I obviously misestimated. Li Yu is not an important figure for that node. The most important figure in that period is Liu Xie, the emperor of the Han dynasty. Chen Shi frowned frequently. The Battle of Zhuzhou, and a series of previous intelligence and historical comparisons, he finally came to an interesting conclusion. Not that he didn't work hard, it seemed that he needed to play the historical correction power collapse first, or play the world badly to open a new chapter. The road is long, and I will search up and down. Chen Shi recited loudly, play slowly, now the chess game has just begun. It is an accident not to do Cao Cao, plus Zun Yu or Cheng Yu's spiritual talent is weird, plus God's protection, sooner or later the corrective power will be broken. What Chen Shi is most afraid of is that what he does is completely useless. If the surging trend is really irresistible, no matter how much he does it in the end, he will be run over in the end. Then now he has returned to seclusion. Fortunately, from the information he has collected, it is just that he is not changing hard enough. Chapter 395. Let's talk about it after mastering the military power first. Sichuan actually has such an elegant interest. Chen Shi was just about to sneak back to sleep after reciting when a smiling voice came from outside the wall. Xuan de Gong. Chen Shi opened the door and smiled at Liu Bei and said, doesn't Xuan de Gong also have Yaxing Candlelight Night Tour? Then he made a gesture of invitation, and followed the servant to take Liu Bei, Li Yu, and Xu Chu to the main hall. I don't have this idea, but I have to come for Zhuzhou. Liu Bei casually made a position and said with a wry smile, it is not an exaggeration to call it a takeoff for his forces after taking over Zhuzhou. But if he accepts Zhuzhou, he will take on the responsibility of Zhuzhou. Xuan de Gong wants to clean up the Zhuzhou family, but he is afraid that Zhuzhou will be chaotic because of this, so he will promise in front of others that the past will not be blamed. Chen Shi sighed and said, sometimes it's easy to break. Indeed, the Zhuzhou family can be described as deeply rooted, although Dao Gong killed a lot, but because of this, the two sides formed a mortal feud. If I still continue like Dao Gong, even if I win, Zhuzhou may be a mess by the family to fight back. This is not what I want, but let the Zhuzhou family continue to take root in Zhuzhou. Dao Gong's previous painstaking efforts will be wasted. Liu Bei sighed and said, and then signaled to Li Yu again. Sichuan, Zhuzhou, and our Taishan military system are also different. If we directly accept Zhuzhou soldiers, or reorganize all the soldiers in order to break up all the soldiers fairly, so that there will be a considerable decline in combat effectiveness without a period of running in. Li Yu said calmly, he can solve these things, but there are always some things that are not suitable. That's why after telling Liu Bei his way, he followed Liu Bei to ask Chen Shi. The military system of the Zhuzhou soldiers will be put on hold for the time being, and the establishment of the Danyang soldiers, Shen Di Gong, thinks it is good? Chen Shi thought about the military system. I thought of the Danyang soldiers again. Compared with other legions, the Danyang soldiers solved the problem of chaos to the greatest extent. It cannot be said that it is an excellent military system, although there are many advantages, but just one separate battle can explain a lot of problems. Although because it is elite, the separate battle seems to be very coordinated. However, if this military system is popularized to conventional corps, it will definitely be a trouble, and the impact on combat effectiveness will be too great. Liu Bei said solemnly. It can be seen that Liu Bei also deliberately asked for the military system of the Danyang soldiers. Shen Degong is wrong. The military system of the Danyang soldiers is entirely because the Danyang soldiers are recruited one by one, and as the commander of the Danyang soldiers who came out of this place, he must first ensure the results of his own mile, and also because he is in the same village and knows enough about the ability of each of his subordinates. Chen Shi shook his head. Danyang soldiers formation. It itself has obvious regional characteristics. The advantage of regionality is unity, and the disadvantage is struggle. Li Yu frowned. This situation has not been changed since ancient times. Break up the reorganization and construct the absolute control structure of the Shiliang soldiers. Li Yu pulled out his original masterpiece without hesitation. No. Chen Shi refused for the first time. Li Yu's pyramid military system is indeed first class in terms of stability and integrity. The problem is that Li Yu's pyramid will destroy the enterprising spirit of the lower class. In other words, for Li Yu, what he needs is the surrender of the Qiong cavalry. The Qiong people are always Qiong people, and the Shiliang soldiers are born to be Shiliang soldiers. In this situation, for the Qiong people who were subdued by the Shiliang soldiers, it was natural to follow the strong. It is indeed very suitable for people like Li Yu and Dong Zhuo who need to maintain the purity of the army, but you do this in the Central Plains. Obviously, Liu Bei didn't understand what Shiliang's absolute control structure was, and he hadn't heard of it to be precise, so he looked at Li Yu and Chen Shi curiously. Ahem, this absolute control structure is like this. First 3 to 5 senior officers are selected from the highest level, and then these senior officers, each of them chooses 3 or 5 of their own adjutants, and then the adjutants choose the middle level, layer by layer. During the war, the low-level officers are killed, and they are directly taken over by the officers who are close to the same level of formation, and after the war, the higher-level officers are assigned new officers. Li Yu said a little embarrassed. He did not count the Qiong people in it at the beginning, and the Qiong people could only be Shiliang soldiers, and the Qiong people could only be auxiliary soldiers. This method is good. Liu Bei understood the benefits of this military system after hearing this, but why did Chen Shi completely disagree? The reason why the Shiliang soldiers can do this is because each of the Shiliang soldiers is a low-ranking officer, and each of them leads several Qiong cavalry, and there is no big problem with the direct assignment of the Shiliang soldiers when they die. But in the Central Plains, they are all Han Chinese, and the direct assignment will make the upper and lower levels disagreeable, and they can only be selected from the lower levels. So to build the military system of the Shiliang soldiers, at least let the subordinates also participate. Chen Shi said helplessly, the way of the Shiliang soldiers is only suitable for the Shiliang soldiers. So that's how it is. Liu Bei nodded and said that he understood that the discord between the upper and lower levels in the army was the biggest trouble, and the Central Plains really couldn't do this. Officers at the bottom are a must. Chen Shi said helplessly, the flexibility of the Danyang soldiers, as well as the combat ability of the general after the death of the general, are very magical. From this point of view, the low-level officers must have it. Corporal, squadron, and uncle must set a 1, 2, 3, or 4, at least someone can replace it after the death of the superior. By the way, double the officers and reserve officers in the team, and if necessary, the reserve officers can directly form a new corps for defense. Chen Shi frowned and said, this move can be said to be the essence of the mob flow. Li Yu and Liu Bei looked at each other. This practice is really very yin. If all the officers are in place, the Tunshan soldiers can get up, and as a garrison force, this move is feasible, and a complete corps can be formed at any time. How about this? After all, the lowest officers do not want intelligence, but the courage of blood. As long as they can convince the public, the middle-level officers directly let the existing middle-level officers recommend the low-level potential officers for training. Li Yu thought for a while and said, it is feasible. Liu Bei nodded and said, this is no problem in terms of convincing the public. Chen Shi nodded and said, I suggest establishing an officer class similar to Danyang soldiers. Tell me. Liu Bei also seemed to want to hear Chen Shi's thoughts. The team was disbanded and reorganized, but the Taishan soldiers were not mixed with San now, but only selected low-level officers. As for the Zuzhu soldiers, excluding all non-standard soldiers, they are also organized in this way. As for the middle-level officers and low-level officers, the Taishan army, which has military exploits this time, is transferred up to half a level to 1 level to join the Zuzhu soldiers, and the military power from top to bottom must not be accidental. Chen Shi said calmly, so that the Zuzhu soldiers were in control. Chapter 396 Reign over Zuzhu. Li Yu sat behind Liu Bei's side and heard Chen Shi's proposal, and a look of enlightenment appeared on the face. It was obvious that what Chen Shi had to do was to let Liu Bei firmly grasp the military power. Maybe Liu Bei didn't notice, the military power in his hands was a little scattered. That's okay, the Taishan soldiers were born and died with me, and they worked hard for several years, so they should be given a chance. Liu Bei nodded and said. Speaking of which, Liu Bei not only treated the old people who followed him very well, but also treated the soldiers who had followed him for many years. It should be said that Liu Bei is a human after all. No matter how big the vow is, it is impossible to achieve a bowl of water level. Xuandagong can personally select a group of soldiers from the bottom soldiers, but when the time comes, try to choose orphans among the soldiers, or soldiers with brothers and brothers. Chen Shi pointed out some details plainly that this era is not the 21st century in which the world is the home of later generations, and the ancients who pay attention to falling leaves and returning to their roots will not easily leave their ancestral homes for a long time.
This is very easy,
Liu Bei said with a smile. There are many soldiers in Mount Tai, and it is not difficult to transfer 3,000 to 5,000 soldiers and low-level officers.
That's fine. Then I will ask Xuan de Gong to help with the selection.
Chen Shi said calmly. As for the Zuzhu family, give them a chance. Now we seek stability and don't want to make a mess of Zuzhu for them. Li Yu shook his head slightly. He had the same goal as Chen Shi, but the advice to Liu Bei was the opposite. Indeed, from the current situation, it is indeed not very suitable for the extermination of the Zuzhu family. It can be said that the current Zuzhu family has been turned into a bird of surprise by Dao Qian, and as long as there is a slight disturbance, it may make the Zuzhu family unite to form a desperate counterattack, which is likely to cause a heavy blow to Zuzhu. However, the contrast leaves the hidden dangers that will arise from the Zuzhu family at that time. After all, the decisive counterattack of the Zuzhu family will definitely not take away the millions of people in Zuzhu, and at most the Zuzhu market will collapse, the people will be displaced, causing billions of money and food losses. This is indeed very serious, but it is not unbearable for Li Yu. In his opinion, what Chen Shi is best at is construction, and without the family, there will be no shackles. Chen Shi can recover in a year at most, and after that, the Zuzhu family will have no power to turn around within 10 years. 1 year of chaos, 10 years of unstoppable development. Li Yu almost didn't hesitate to push the Zuzhu family. Let them see the opportunity to overthrow Liu Xuande, and then seek death by themselves, so as not to damage Liu Bei's benevolence. I really don't want to kill more in the Zuzhu family, and it will not be easy to stabilize the people of Zuzhu for a short time without them. Liu Bei also agreed with Chen Shi's statement. Liu Bei, who was born in the lower class, but he really saw how the clan family solved the people's affairs that were difficult for the government to solve. Chen Shi nodded. Liu Bei and his thoughts were similar, and the Zuzhu family could still use it at this time. And the damage caused by all the smoothing is too great, so there is no need to rush for a while. It's better to let them slowly destroy themselves, and there is no need to rush to achieve it, so as not to cause a backlash. But you can't just cheapen the Zuzhu family for nothing. Good things can let them all occupy it. It's not that easy. Do you really think you are all indispensable to Zuzhu, Xuan de Gong?
A sneer crossed Chen Shi's face.
Xuan de Gong, it is indeed not advisable to continue killing in Zuzhu, but it is even more undesirable to let go of the Zuzhu family like this. I suggest that all the officials from the Zuzhu family be transferred to Qingju, and the officials of Qingju will be transferred to Zuzhu. Presumably such a little thin-faced Zuzhu family still needs to be given to us.
Chen Shi looked at Liu Bei with a warm smile and said, "Good." Li Yu instantly understood what Chen Shi meant.
90% of those officials in Qingju were poor scholars recruited by Liu Bei with a recruitment order when he was the poorest, and they were also Liu Bei scholars who set up banquets and gifts out of the city, and this group of scholars was basically Liu Bei's die-hard faction. When millions of yellow turban soldiers went out of Qingju to eat in the four fields, this group of scholars did not swear to surrender even if there was no soldier, and they defeated the die-hard factions who coexisted and died with the land under their rule. It can be said that if that group of people is brought to Zuzhu, they will definitely carry out Liu Bei's orders to the letter, and it is difficult to be persuaded by the Zuzhu family, and after the officials of the Zuzhu family were transferred to Qingju, there was no support from the local family, and there was Taishan and others staring behind them, so it was impossible to make the slightest outrageous move. In addition, those die-hard factions of Liu Bei came to Zuzhu to occupy the official position of Zuzhu, which itself was the suppression of the Zuzhu family, which basically limited the development of the local family in Zuzhu, and Liu Bei, who was in military power at that time. As long as the Zuzhu family was not stupid, he would never dare to fight back, and the regime and military power were not in hand.
This method is very good.
Liu Bei's mind was not slow, and he quickly reacted, but it is probably not so easy for the Zuzhu family to agree to do this. It's not about them or not, it's about us. Jiao Wen and the things in their hands are enough for them to make the right choice, and we have already said that we are not to blame in the past, and the other party must also pay the price of not blaming us in the past, and the family will always know each other.
Li Yu said with a sigh.
Zichuan's proposal makes sense, and in this way, the new groups that are being generated in Qingju can be transferred to Zuzhu, and this new group of forces will play a game with the weakened Zuzhu locals. Li Yu remembered the Qingju incident reported some time ago, and was more satisfied with Chen Shi's proposal. Instead of letting internal contradictions arise, it was better to let the internal contradictions of the die-hard faction transfer to the Zuzhu family, so that even if there was consumption, it would also have a promoting effect on the overall situation. Well, that's what it means, and this is also a temptation. The family is an official locally, resulting in the complete inclusion of the local area into the scope of the family's power within 3 or 5 generations, Only knowing the family, not knowing the Han court. This kind of thing must be curbed. Let's see the effect first.
Chen Shi sighed and said.
To be honest, Chen Shi is not optimistic that the group of officials in Qingju can continue to play games with the Zuzhu family after arriving in Zuzhu. And the most likely situation is that with the impact again and again, the last group of officials and the Zuzhu family have reached a balance. But if they can fight for so long, it will be difficult for the Zuzhu family to threaten Zuzhu even if they react. This is why Chen Shi wanted to establish absolute military power first, at least to give this group of people a solid backing, so that they can fight with the local forces in Zuzhu without scruples and compete for everything they deserve.
Chapter 397 The Virtue I Approve.
The fundamental reason for the ruling side of the family is that the local government is an official. As long as it is a person, it cannot escape favors. Coupled with the filial piety of the Han dynasty, it is natural to hide relatives or something, and it can be said that it is not only natural to seek the welfare of one's own family as an official in the local area, but also the unspoken rules of all the default rules of the family and the country. In this way, it will lead to the local family becoming more and more deeply rooted, and the local family is becoming more and more effective in managing the local area, which can be described as harmonious when civil strife does not break out, but if civil strife breaks out, it is really difficult to deal with. I only know that the local family may not know that the Han court may be a bit excessive, but it can be said that things such as fearing the local family and not revering the Han court basically happen from time to time. Zuzhu as a temptation, we can't let the family continue to develop and grow in the local area, which is not in the interests of the Han family, nor is it in the interests of the people.
Chen Shi said coldly.
Only by looking at these things from this indifferent third-party perspective can he be absolutely correct, but fortunately, when it comes to the family, Chen Shi will naturally classify himself as a third party that is neither hostile nor his own. It should be like this, some things should be sooner rather than later, just like the matter of commerce. If Sichuan didn't force it to be implemented at that time, it would probably really stabilize, and even when the world was swept away, I was afraid that I wouldn't have the ability to implement it. Liu thought about it for a moment and mentioned without hesitation that even he was not optimistic, but reality educated him about business.
Yes, Xuan de Gong.
Now the timing is good. I have always wanted to say that I have a lot of things in my head that I want to take out, but there is no good time to take it out, and I will definitely have to fight a big battle internally.
Chen Shi had an extreme headache when he said this.
The sentence unprecedented, impossible to prove is enough to make many of Chen Shi's ideas not have the opportunity to be implemented.
He.
Li Yu laughed dryly. The last time they fought, needless to say, Chen Shi won.
It's unprecedented.
Liu Bei also understood where the resentment in Chen Shi's words came from. Just do it, Sichuan. Don't worry, as long as others can't prove you wrong, I will support you.
What are you afraid of?
I believe in your Chen Sichuan's vision. I believe you can clean up the mess even if you mess up.
Thank you, Xuan de Gong.
Chen Shi casually clasped his hands. Generally speaking, no matter how good the timing of my card is, it is impossible to easily promote a decree that has not appeared before, and it is a miracle that Xuan de Gong can promote the decree of universal education.
Well, it's truly a miracle.
Liu glanced at Chen Shi and immediately felt sad. It is estimated that except for Liu Xuande, no one in this Han dynasty dared to shout the words of opening up the wisdom of the people and popularizing education in front of the people of the world.
Xuan de Gong rend.
Liu sighed, and said without waiting for Liu Bei to say anything, no matter what others thought, Liu Bei's words were worth his life struggle in Liu's opinion. Although it is different from his ideals, it is the same destination. In other words, Liu Bei's concept of benevolence embraces Liu's ideals.
Rende.
I used to think that the 9 virtues of the princes that the governor of Kaishu Zhou Yaogong said to Emperor Yu were the supreme virtues of the princes, but when I sat in the position of the lord of a state, I understood why Sichuan told me that the 9 virtues of the princes were not enough. Liu Bei shook his head and said, he didn't understand the term benevolence more and more now. The 9 virtues of the feudal lords are not enough to emulate? Li was stunned for a moment, then looked sideways at Chen Shi. Where did this start? Prince Joda, even if he is perfect, he is just a perfect person. Do we need a perfect person? Chen Shi said casually. When he said this, he noticed that Liu Bei was restraining himself with some unnecessary details, so he mentioned it casually. Chen Shi originally meant that it was better to do something serious when he had that time, but he didn't expect Liu Bei to really be a prince and not enough to do it. Princes, I stood on the altar of Fenggao and looked down at the people who flowed endlessly, looking at their smiling faces, looking at the food and clothing of the people of Mount Tai, watching the children playing on the streets covered with bluestone, watching the busy sowing during spring plowing, and the joyful smiling faces during the autumn harvest. I think this is the portrayal of my virtue. Liu Bei didn't wait for Chen Shi to continue explaining, and a touch of brilliance appeared on his face, and he slowly expressed what he thought was virtue now. I like to walk dogs and fight cocks. My ability is not strong, I can't be really fair and prudent, and I can't really guarantee that I won't vent my anger on others at any time. Liu Bei smiled here. I can't do more than half of the 9 virtues of the princes, but I think it is more important to make the people live better than all other virtues. When he said this, Chen Shi, Li Yu, and Shu Chu, who was sitting aside as a stone statue, all felt a kind of spiritual uplift, and Liu Bei seemed to have been sublimated from the outside in. My Liu Xuanda's virtue is right for all the people in the world, and the people say good, that is my benevolence, and the people praise, that is my virtue. At this moment, Liu Bei exuded a magnificent righteousness, a righteousness for the people. Li Yu and Chen Shi's spirits suddenly lifted, and then they looked at each other, and both saw the astonishment in each other's eyes, and a power like a spiritual talent flowed beside Liu Bei. After setting up camp in Yenzhou's Shanyang County under the protection of Le Jin, Cao Cao, who was resting, suddenly woke up and looked in the direction of Zuzhu. Cao Cao felt a power opposite to him. If Cao Cao's awakening power is to strengthen his own beliefs, strengthen the beliefs of everyone on his side, and not doubt right and wrong, he will make himself and all his subordinates of stronger strength. If someone is willing to use his life to implement his beliefs, then all aspects will rise greatly, and all kinds of negative effects will be greatly suppressed. Then Liu Bei's power to awaken now is to find people who are similar to his own beliefs, use his beliefs to infect others, and then forge ahead towards the goal together. Cao Cao did not need the approval of others, he implemented his will and commanded his men to conquer the world. And Liu Bei needs to find his comrades in arms. He cannot fulfill his ideals by himself, and only like-minded comrades in arms can help him achieve his ideals. Congratulations to Duke Xuanda. Li Yu and Chen Shi both guessed some possibility, and said in unison the moment Liu Bei opened his eyes. When I stood on the altar and looked down at Fengao, I had a kind of throbbing, but unfortunately it was blurred, and I had a kind of anger when I watched the people of Zuzhu displaced, but I couldn't vent it, and after entering Xiapi, I looked at the smiling faces of the people of Zuzhu, and I finally knew what my virtue was. Liu Bei said in a trance. Chapter 398 Placement. There are too many things I can't do, but I found a brother who was like-minded with me and willing to work hard to support the Han dynasty, and then met Zichuan when I went to Hulaguan under the banner of Gongsun Boisgouet. Liu Bei said to himself softly, Destiny destined that I will not be alone. Even if we fail, there will be people who will follow us, not to mention that we are walking on the Grand Road, and no one will be able to defeat us. Chen Shi said indifferently. Liu Bei's road is difficult to walk, but even if he dies, there are people who have been following his footsteps and marching, supporting the banner of the Han dynasty. Even if Liu Bei fell in history, Zhuge Liang still took over this banner. Zhuge Liang fell to Hangyuan. Jiangwei once again carried this banner, and remained unswerving until his death. Even if I fail, I will come back, and I, Liu Xuanda, will never give in. Liu Bei's gaze was like water, but he resolutely moved Chen Shi. Time and space rotated, and Liu Bei's will still did not change. How can you fail? Li Yu looked at the 2 monarchs and virtuous ministers in front of him and said with a smile, How can we, who have the greatest support under our rule, fail? How can we fail? Chen Shi took the stubble and repeated. Liu Bei couldn't hear it, but Chen Shi clearly knew that Li Yu was hinting at Chen Shi. At this point, there is no retreat, especially after defeating Cao Cao's group. There can be no cowardice, nor can there be the slightest instability. At this time, once the slightest sign of instability is revealed, so that the princes of the 4 directions feel that there is an opportunity, a big war is absolutely inevitable. Let's continue to talk about Zuzhu, how to deal with Cao Jun's prisoners. Liu Bei suppressed the restlessness in his heart, then asked, Isn't it okay to move back to Mount Tai for labor reform? Chen Shi asked puzzledly. He did not participate in the battle against Cao Cao at that time, so naturally he did not see the group of Cao army prisoners who had been sent to the East China Sea near the border of Mount Tai. Cao Jun has a high degree of support for Cao Cao Mengde. Of course, there are also some who are dissatisfied with Cao Mengde because of Cao Jun's digging of people's graves, but most of them are very supportive of Cao Mengde, which is probably similar to the reason for our soldiers. Li Yu explained calmly, and even said the reason. The captives appeared and fled. Chen Shi frowned and said, It's right to think about it. One is Cao Jun's gratitude to Cao Cao for pulling them out of the abyss of hunger and cold, and the other is that Cao Jun's family is in Yangzhou. There have been many fleeing Cao Jun, although many have been captured, but hundreds of Cao Jun prisoners have escaped. I have ordered Taishan to send Tunchen soldiers to strengthen the guards, but this is not a solution. Li Yu said with a smile, but the moment he looked at Chen Shi, his eyes did not hide the cold killing intent. That's right. How many are willing to stay? Chen Shi extinguished Li Yu's idea of killing them all without thinking. Not to mention the ominous killing of prisoners, Chen Shi did not dare to think about how much impact more than 40,000 young men and women would have on killing. There are more than 6,000 prisoners who complain about Cao Mengde, but less than half are willing to stay, and the remaining 30,000 people have no special feelings about Cao Mengde's actions.
Li Yu said helplessly.
Take in the part that is willing to stay first, and strengthen the guards for the rest, and now we can't let them return to Yangju no matter what. Chen Shi said calmly. Obviously this tone made Li Yu understand that some unconventional means could be used when necessary.
Let them go back.
We fought this battle in vain, and it was troublesome to turn back Cao Mengde and recruit him.
Liu Bei also sighed and said.
But it's not the same thing to raise it in vain. If Liu Bei is allowed to abuse prisoners of war, Liu Bei feels that it shouldn't be, so he freezes here.
Well, I thought of a good place.
When Chen Shi was selecting suitable labor camp places, he suddenly thought of an isolated place.
Tell me. Liu Bei said curiously. Get them here.
Chen Shi found a map, pointed to the sea area of Yangju and said, there is an isolated island in this direction drawn on the map. Xingba is just going to build there, get those die-hardliners to that island, and it will be good every few years. Just build that big island. In case you want to fight with Yangju in the future, the front will attract firepower in the Yangtze River, and you can also use this big island as a springboard to attack Yangju. Xingba's fleet has reached its limit when transporting 5,000 people at a time, and 40,000 people go back and forth 8 times, so Xingba doesn't have to do anything else this year. Li Yu frowned and said, if there is really such a big island where this group of prisoners has a place to settle, after a few years, the hair will be smooth, and then bring it back. There is really no need for Xingba to do anything in a short time. His navy is still a semi-finished product. Chen Shi shook his head and said, if you transfer those prisoners there, even if they want to escape, it will be difficult for them to escape, and they can stop supplying, so they can be driven to farm there.
Will this expose the island?
After all, what you mean is that this island is more intended to attack the rear of Yangju as a springboard. Li Yu frowned and said, compared with the long-term strategic plan, there is no need to make such a big fuss about relocating prisoners. No, there are a lot of islands in the sea, and they will suspect that we have found the big island, but they can't find it without a sufficiently accurate chart, let alone know that there is such a place behind Yangju. Chen Shi shook his head and said, after all, there are too many islands in the sea, and no one really doubts that there are tens of thousands of prisoners. Then let's do it this way. These tens of thousands of prisoners must not be returned. Liu Bei agreed to Chen Shi's arrangement. He was not a fool, although he did not kill prisoners, but he was not willing to consume his own food in vain to raise a group of idlers. Chen Shi now had to deal with it. He felt that it was very appropriate. It's a little pity, but it's much better than spending money to raise a group of idlers before. More than 40,000 veterans, Zun Wenruo and the others will probably be distressed, and when the time comes, let someone get an article, saying that we are indeed sending prisoners to overseas islands, and they are saving us to kill prisoners.
Chen Shi shook his head and said.
To be honest, Chen Shi hopes that these more than 40,000 people can be organized into his own troops now, so that the strength of his side can quickly take off, but unfortunately it is impossible for this group of prisoners to join them without a period of education. After returning to Mount Tai, let's form a new legion. These Cao Jun's weapons and equipment are just right for us. Liu Bei sighed and said, when the time comes, after the reorganization of Zuzhu, a corps will be transferred from Mount Tai, and the combat effectiveness of the Zuzhu soldiers will never be reassuring, and Zuzhu seems to be an auxiliary soldier except for the Danyang elite.
Chapter 399 Zuzhu Chen Jiamai Pingen.
Chen Shi smiled bitterly. He could say that Zuzhu was too comfortable. There had been no war for 3 years, and the Zuzhu soldiers were mainly used to maintain public order, and what combat effectiveness could they have? Zuzhu soldiers are reselected, and all those who do not meet the requirements are dismissed, and enough allowances are issued. Li Yu also looked very annoyed by the Zuzhu soldiers. At least he could no longer use the general camp as a nursing home like Cao Bao's period.
All the generals who eat empty pay are eliminated.
We gave the Zuzhu family face, and the Zuzhu family should not go too far.
Liu Bei nodded and said.
It is said that other generals are trying their best to expand their ranks in troubled times, and even secretly overstaffed, but this group of picked goods in Zuzhu eat empty pay. The team is not full, the team of 5,000 people may not even have 3,000, and the elite soldiers of Danyang were almost eaten by Cao Bao, let alone other troops. After Liu Bei and Chen Shi chatted about the situation in Zuzhu for a while, they didn't bother Chen Shi anymore, and left an extra team of guards at Feng's house, and Liu Bei took a group back quickly. Most of Liu Bei's traces of the Zuzhu family saw it, living in Zuzhu city instead of living in the barracks outside the city, which made the Zuzhu family feel a lot relieved. What they were most worried about was that Liu Bei said that he was not to blame for the past, and he was still thinking about cleaning them up behind his back. If that was the case, the Zuzhu family would have to fight to the death. Early the next morning, Liu Bei took over the political affairs of Zuzhu and officially appointed Chen Deng as the governor of Guangling. Zhao Yu took over as the governor of Xiapi, and ordered Li Yu to take charge of all affairs in Zuzhu, and Chen Deng and Zhao Yu were supplemented, and no other arrangements were made after that, but in this way, the Zuzhu family was at peace in their hearts. Chen Deng looked at Chen Shi and Jioshu who came together and smiled bitterly twice. His father was really right. This matter is not so easy to end. I've seen Chen Hu, I've seen Zhao Junxia. Chen Deng bowed respectfully to the two of them, and then made a gesture of invitation. He invited the two of them into his home. Yuan Long doesn't know what you think of this Zuzhu matter. Chen Shi took a sip of tea and asked. Zuzhu is rich and strong, but the army will be outnumbered, and if you want to govern Zuzhu, you must first strengthen the army in order to defend the land. Chen Deng said with a calm expression. Oh, that makes sense. Chen Shi said indifferently, not mentioning that the family did make Chen Shi feel curious, but it was just curiosity. Then how does Yuan Long think he should strengthen the army? Jioshu glanced at Chen Shi, who was no longer speaking, but was just smiling and applying pressure. Asked expressionlessly. Unify the conscription standards, unify the allowances, benefits and pensions of soldiers, and then eliminate the unsuitable soldiers among the Zuzhu soldiers. Recruit new soldiers and train them according to General Yu Wenzi's training model. Chen Deng said with a slightly helpless expression, so that the Zuzhu family, including their Zuzhu Chen family, had a great loss in the army. This method is good. At that time, Yuan Long will select suitable soldiers from Mount Tai to train Zuzhu soldiers. Jioshu nodded and said. Then throw the already prepared conditions to Chen Deng. Chen Deng was stunned for a moment, and a kind of secret joy surged in his heart in an instant, saying this was equivalent to giving the Chen family a chance to make friends with the military, although this opportunity was limited by Liu Bei's control of military power, but it was enough to bring too many benefits to the Chen family. As for how much trouble this would bring to the Zuzhu family. Thinking of this, a cold light flashed in Chen Deng's eyes, who nodded slightly, and the Zuzhu family had now been messed up by Dao Qian. And since He Chen family has such an opportunity, they take advantage of the current great loss of the strength of the Zuzhu family. Leaping up and overpowering all families to become the largest family in Zuzhu, such an opportunity is in front of us, whether to do it or not to do it is a big question. Chen Shi held the teacup and sipped the tea lightly. This opportunity was handed over to Chen Deng. What to do that was Chen Deng's business, it had nothing to do with them, but Chen Deng and Chen Gui thought about their families all their lives, and it was probably difficult to turn a blind eye to such an opportunity. Even if there is no need to instruct, Chen Yuan Long will use this power to suppress other families, and the family will inevitably consider their own family. Jioshu thought indifferently. As for the Zuzhu Chen family, when Chen Yuan Long develops, he will understand what is the most correct choice. Even if it doesn't work, the goal becomes one to clean up the situation. A touch of ridicule on Chen Shi's face flashed away. This is Chen Deng's biggest dead point, not because his intelligence is not high, but because he has been blinded by the Zhenxing family many times. Thank you Chen Hu and Zhao Junxia for your good intentions. Chen Deng said without changing his face. It seemed that he had already made a choice without much effort. After all, Yuan Long has provided us with too much help, and we are just returning the favor. Zuzhu still depends on your contributions, and the prosperity under the rule depends on your family's means. Chen Shi put down the teacup, slid his fingers slightly, and said with a smile. Chen Hu is joking. How dare Deng not do his best? Chen Deng said solemnly, and a layer of cold sweat couldn't help but break out on his back, and Chen Shi's words made him a little unhappy. Yuan Long, don't worry. The smile on Chen Shi's face was even stronger. Previously, the assassination in front of Zuzhu City was eyebrow-raising, although Xuandagong has said that he is not to blame, but we still need to be careful. The bed crossbow in the army can be so easily pounded out, and this Zuzhu army needs to be more powerful when rectifying. Chen Deng easily heard the mocking meaning in Chen Shi's words. His face was slightly ugly, and he finally knew why his father wanted him to hand over this thing. Chen Hu, the bed crossbow matter has already been seized. It is the work of a group of military craftsmen. I have detained all of them, and ordered them to be detained. These are the documents of seizure, as well as the contract signed by their group. Chen Deng slowly retreated, and when he came over again, he held a wooden box, put it on several cases and opened it, and placed a stack of paper contracts flatly inside. That's so good. The finished bed crossbow should also be sent to the army. Presumably these craftsmen didn't just make so many units. Chen Shi picked up the stack of documents, looked at them casually and put them away. Chen Deng can take it out now, which means that the Chen family has decisively abandoned these dangerous items that can threaten the survival of the family at any time. The finished product has been sent to the government office, just waiting for the Lord to accept it. Chen Deng lowered his head and said, without any unwillingness at all. When it is broken, the bed crossbow is left in the Chen family, although it is indeed the only way to deter other families, but it is a huge hidden danger for the Chen family itself, Because of this, losing these things, although Chen Deng is unwilling, but he quickly adjusted his mood. Chen Shi and Jioshu smiled slightly. As originally estimated, the Chen family in Zuzhu was very interesting, or they also noticed that such a thing as a bed crossbow did more harm than good to their family, so they deliberately exposed it in Kaosong's case, which can be regarded as buying peace for the future. Chapter 400 Count Jizhou again. Dao Qian did not support it for too long, seeing that Liu Bei successfully took over the entire Zuzhu, and did not wake up at night a few days later. Liu Bei personally mourned, and warned the Zuzhu family at Dao Qian's funeral that if Dao Qian's second son had any accidents, he would definitely make the Zuzhu family pay the price. The Zuzhu family is also acquiesced to this matter. They seek peace rather than opposition to the upper echelons. After that, Chen Shi and others did not provoke the Zuzhu family too much, but only publicly expounded the problem of dealing with the Zuzhu soldiers, and the Zuzhu family had no ability to refuse at all, and it was not easy to refuse. Liu Bei has made concessions on the previous matter, and if the military power is compromised, then Liu Bei will definitely turn his face mercilessly. This is the rule of the game in the eyes of the Zuzhu family. This kind of game is about oneself, as long as there are rules, and it is obvious that although the rules of the game formulated by Liu Bei are not loose, they are relatively much better than Dao Qian's unrestrained killing. Because of this, the Zuzhu family is also very happy, especially when Liu Bei said that he wanted to return to Mount Tai, and the affairs of Zuzhu were handed over to Li Yu during this time, leaving Zhao Yun and Chen Ji to temporarily garrison Guangling and Sharpei, recruiting and training Danyang soldiers, and defending Yuanshu and Yuzhou, which made the entire Zuzhu family ecstatic, including Chen Deng. Father, Liu Xuande left like this? Chen Deng stood on the city gate tower and watched Liu Bei and his party go away, and then turned his head to look at Chen Ju and asked puzzled. Just leave. Chen Gui's beard trembled, and he couldn't understand what Liu Bei was playing now. Although there is a world-famous Zhao Zilong, there is still a Chen Shuji, plus Li Yu, who is the acting governor of Zuzhu. But this is completely different from the situation Chen Gui expected. Just leave. Chen Deng and Chen Ju looked at each other, puzzled all over their cheeks. It shouldn't be. On the other side, Liu Bei was also a little puzzled while driving a horse. Didn't he agree that he would leave the Zuzhu family without being able to toss it? Why did he go back to Mount Tai so early? And he actually left Li Yu in Zuzhu, and his advisors were gone. Xuandagong, now is the time for us to stabilize the military power first. Then move on to other things. There are scholars there, you don't have to worry. It will definitely be fine. Chen Shi comforted. Jioshu looked up at the sky silently. If Li Yu was left alone, if there was no unexpected bloodshed in Zuzhu, Jioshu felt that he could change his surname to Zhen. Chen Shi, this guy threw Li Yu, a harmless advisor, to Zuzhu just to add firewood to the Zuzhu family? Lord, you have to believe in the Confucian. He will definitely govern Zuzhu well. When Jioshu said this, the indelible smile was simply a mockery of the entire Zuzhu family. It's not that I don't believe in Confucianism, but now that things are not over and I am leaving, Sichuan's relocation is over before it even begins. Sichuan has such a good thing to talk to? Liu Bei sighed and said, we don't need to rush for success, step by step. Wenru will find the opportunity to complete these things. What we want is Zuzhu. Instead of the family governing Zuzhu together, the Confucian scholars will successfully solve this matter. Chen Shi yawned and said, this is Li Yu. Although he does not have any record on the surface, he only exists as a close minister of Liu Bei, but the record behind it is enough to reach the mountain. Alas, I'm not used to it without a literary scholar. Liu Bei sighed and said, when Li Yu is here, many things will be handled by Li Yu at will, and without Li Yu, Liu Bei found that he was a little unused to it now. Oh, I'll find another one for Xuandagong when I go back. Chen Shi sighed and said, Li Yuyong is used to inertia, the strongest secretary-level figure, basic government affairs, military, politics can be dealt with by the other party you can think of, and the other party you can't think of will also give you guidance. Forget it, the position of the literary scholar will be vacant first. Just wait for the literary scholar to come back. Since you said that the scholar can't take too long, then let's do it first. Liu Bei waved his hand and said, he really didn't want anyone to occupy Li Yu's position. Li Yu, I am optimistic about you. I believe you will be able to play Chen Deng to death, so that they can't afford the idea of challenging the rules. Chen Shi looked back at the city of Zuzhu with a smile on his face. Li Yu asked to stay, and Chen Shi's original idea was to hand over to the infamous Lu Su to let him take a triple jump from Taishan Cheng, sit in Sharpei, and govern the entire Zuzhu. As a result, Li Yu opened his mouth and handed it over to him, Chen Shi and Jioshu without much consideration. Li Yu advised Liu Bei together. Compared with Lu Su, Li Yu is even more unknown, his ability is not bad, and his experience is richer. But I always feel that we are deliberately luring the Zuzhu family to make mistakes. Alas, sure enough, my sense of justice is a little too much. If the Zuzhu family is upright, how can they fall into such an obvious trap without other ideas? Chen Shi had a pitiful expression. Joshu was extremely speechless, and touched his beard. Zichuan, I always feel that the idea of a literary scholar is not just to clean up the family in Zuzhu. Probably to give Jizhou Zhugong an illusion. I remember he mentioned to me about calculating Zhugong and me.
Chen Shi shook his head and said,
Oh, don't you say that I forgot about this. Wenru was invited out of the Lord's side. Naturally Jusho would think that it was us who exerted his strength. Plus Zuzhu is now in a situation. Jizhou intelligence is not bad. It is estimated that we will come to the conclusion that it is difficult for Wenru to return to Mount Tai.
Jioshu nodded and said,
Yes, even if Chen Yuanlong and Chen Hanyu father and son are famous ministers in the world, and they have local families by their side, and the preferential conditions we give to the Chen family, naturally Jizhou will guess that we are using the hands of the Chen family to overthrow the Confucian scholars, so that he will no longer have a step to enter.
Chen Shi nodded and said,
To play, you have to play a full set. Such a multi-pronged approach, coupled with the preconceived notions. Liu Bei's current situation also has a realistic image in Jizhou, and then as long as Li Yu says that he still has chess pieces by Liu Bei's side, this situation can continue to play. This situation is not easy to operate. Are you sure that Wenru can deceive us from Jizhou to the way we want to govern Zuzhu? Jioshu sighed. The most important thing in this matter is Li Yu's performance. It should be possible. After all, Jizhou is also consolidating internally now, and I don't want to start a big war lightly, so that there is an opportunity to weaken our strength. They will not miss it easily, and more importantly, if they can really abolish Xuandagong and disintegrate us from the inside, I don't think Yuan Benchu will mind giving it a try.
Chen Shi thought for a while and said,
Then during this time, find a way to let the Lord do something amazing. Jioshu frowned and said, This can reflect the importance of Confucianism to Jizhou. Think about what is the best thing to do.
Chapter 401 The general trend broke it.
It's still not wanted. If it's too deliberate, it may be seen by Zun Yeruo, Chen Yuanhao, and the others.
Chen Shi shook his head and said,
It's too much. Forget it. In that case, then this matter depends on the operation of the literary Confucian. After all, if the literary Confucian has mental calculations and no intention, it is difficult for anyone to resist, depending on the performance of the literary Confucian. Jioshu sighed and said, he was also a little excited, and the master of calculation always gave him a kind of mental uplift.
There is a mind and no intention.
Chen Shi seemed to think of something not very good. You said that if Zun Wen was calculating Chen Gongtai in advance, how would this situation be solved now? By the way, Kongming's strategy to Cao Mengde could probably make Cao Mengde half angry, and at that time, he looked at the strategy with operational possibilities. But now he has directly become a flower in the mirror, the moon in the water. I remember you mentioned Kongming's strategy. It seems to have a high feasibility, but in fact, many of them are damaging the foundation, and Zhuge Kongming is not so kind. Jioshu shook his head and said, and that strategy is indeed a seam at first glance. In fact, if you carefully scrutinize, you will find that there are many hidden dangers. Cao Mengde can't see it when he is angry for a while, but he will understand it when he calms down. In fact, Jioshu also thought badly. Cao Cao was angry at that time, and then after reading it, he was half dead by Zhuge Liang, and directly tore Zhuge Liang's letter to pieces, although he remembered Zhuge Liang's excellent strategy, but he didn't want to think about that sad thing, and did not think deeply about Zhuge Liang's strategy again. So in Cao Cao's mind, Zhuge Liang was actually a wise man who was superhuman in wisdom.
If you can't deceive people, I know.
If you really want to deceive that kind of person, unless someone like you is willing to take risks, a letter alone will not stand up to scrutiny.
Chen Shi also sighed and said,
The letter itself was used by Zhuge Liang to show his wisdom, making Cao Cao regret it for the rest of his life, and it was enough to show Zhuge Liang's wisdom for a while. No way, not to mention Zun Wenruo, Shi Jizai, and others. Cao Mengde himself is one of the wise men in the world. Jioshu sighed and said, As for the kind of situation you mentioned, I also thought about it before. There was only one possibility. Chen Shi's face was also bitter when he heard this, and he combined Chen Gong's character, Liu Biyu's personality, Zun Yu's prudence, Cao Cao's domineering and cherishing talents, and the composition of Cao's conspiracy. The only possibility that was inferred in the end was actually like this.
Zichuan guessed it too.
Jioshu sighed and said, He has always been curious about what is going on with Chen Shi. Sometimes he is dull, and sometimes he shows intelligence but does not frighten anyone. If Zun Wenruo takes one step and looks at 3 steps, can this be played? Chen Shi said speechlessly, If it's just this possibility, then there's nothing to say. It's become an inevitable situation, and I'm really helpless.
Ha ha ha.
You say that if Zun Wenruo takes 1 step and looks at 3 steps, don't you also take 1 step and look at 3 steps? What's more, haven't Zun Wenruo's wax so far been forced by you to that extent? Jioshu laughed and said, "You Chen Zichuan always forget to count yourself. Zun Wan Ruo, and you take one step and look at 3 steps, but you can't hold the general trend and can only be forced to move around by you." It's not that simple, whether you admit it or not. Cao Jun is indeed getting stronger and stronger, even if we beat a rout this time, but it is still several times stronger than when he returned from Hulao Pass. Zun Wan Ruo has been strengthening Cao Jun. Chen Shi shook his head and said, "Zun Yu, who was called my son by Cao Cao, was indeed very difficult to deal with, and his existence was too important to the stability of Cao Cao's rear. But this defeat, it is difficult for Cao Mengde to rise again. Lu Fengxian will not give him a chance. Cao Mengde can't stop the strong attack for more than 3 months, and when the summer grain comes down, Cao Mengde will be sad."
Jioshu said indifferently.
Cao Mengde listened to the words of Zhao Yi and Zun Wanruo to open the Yangju wasteland for comprehensive farming. But now Yangju is basically occupied by Lu Biyu, and 90% of the Tunchen area has fallen into the hands of Lu Biyu, which can only be said to be a cocoon and self-binding. When he said this, Jioshu shook his head again and again, and he really didn't want to say anything about Cao Cao's back luck. Chen Shi sighed with emotion. He really didn't want to say anything. Cao Cao didn't want to fight Zuzhu. This year Yangju was really harvested. Cao Cao had the capital for the western expedition, but unfortunately now it's good. All the capital of the takeoff was sent to Lu Biyu. It was strange that Lu Biyu didn't use this capital to beat Cao Cao dizzy. Chen Gongtai was really ruthless enough, and Zun Wanruo was really bold. Originally, Zun Wanruo's plan should have been to expose all the contradictions within Yangju with the help of Lu Fengxian and Chen Gongtai, and then whether it was cleaned by himself or by the hands of Lu Biyu, then Yangju could become a monolith. Chen Shi sighed and said, "And if Zun Wanruo is also sure that Cao Jun will lose the battle with us in Mount Tai, Cao Cao will also realize his mistake. I will also recognize the gap, and then return to fight Lu Biyu, who occupies most of Yangju, and it can be said that Lu Biyu will be defeated." Chen Shi had a slightly admiring tone. Cao Mengde doesn't say anything else. He has a kind of courage. After realizing the difference in strength between him and us, he will definitely try to subdue Lu Biyu, coupled with Chen Gongtai's personality. If Lu Biyu wants to save his life, Cao Mengde doesn't care about his past grievances, and admits his mistakes. 9 out of 10 will surrender, and he will never rebel again. Jioshu took over the stubble and said with great emotion, "The purpose of losing Yangju is to purify the forces under his command, subdue Lu Biyu and his party, and force Cao Cao to return to the army." An inexplicable mockery appeared on Chen Shi's face. People are not as good as heaven. If you really subdue Lu Biyu and his party, Zun Wanruo will definitely propose that the troops enter the Sili, and the Shiliang Iron Cavalry will definitely be included in Cao Cao's command. But now, the flowers in the mirror and the moon in the water. I'm afraid it's not that easy to fail. Jioshu shook his head and said, although Cao Cao couldn't stand Lu Biyu on the plain, he was forced to guard Chenliu and guard the pass, and it was difficult for Lu Biyu to beat Cao Cao out of Yangju. Chen Shi did not answer the question. In the early days of Cao Cao's fight against Lu Biyu, it was really like Jioshu's estimate. Cao Cao was not an opponent at all, and then there was a locust plague and Lu Biyu's summer grain was directly gone, which led to Cao Cao having a chance to breathe, and then made a comeback to defeat Lu Biyu. What I'm worried about now is that if Zun Wen still has a way to enter the master and annex the Shiliang Iron Cavalry, it will not be good. Chen Shi sighed and said, Zun Wanruo took 1 step and looked at 3 steps is not a joke, although he can guess what Zun Wanruo's expression was when he learned of Cao Cao's entire army was defeated, but he believed that this situation would not force Zun Wanruo to be helpless. You must know how many times in history Cao Cao has been more dangerous than this. Let's take a step by step, let's do our own thing first, and strengthening ourselves is always more important than weakening others. Jioshu said flatly, as long as we always maintain our current strength, we are not afraid of any strategy from the other party, and we can break it with the general trend, which is what you are best at. Chapter 402 The Doomed Tragedy. Chen Shi turned his head to look at Jioshu. Wonher, I always thought you were a master of playing conspiracies. Why have you changed careers now? Isn't this the essence of Yang Mao? You changed jobs again? Jioshu glanced at Chen Shi. Conspiracy and Yang conspiracy can be used as a good plan. Conspiracy is easy and labor-saving. With small and broad, Yang Mao is upright and irresistible. This should be combined into one. Why divide it? Chen Shi shrugged. He is not very good at conspiracies and calculations. What he is best at is to be upright. No matter how the other party tosses and turns, I will break it with 1 punch. However, once the conspiracy is exposed, it has no value, but it is easy to be countered, so it is absolutely not advisable to build a major plan on top of the conspiracy, and the same conspiracy cannot be carried out at some point. As long as it is practical, it is a good plan. Jioshu said with a strange expression. Another pragmatism. Chen Shi shrugged. Yang Mao, it's very useful, especially our approach of suppressing the general trend. After Liu Bei left, the entire Zuzhu family began to move. while Li Yu turned a blind eye to the behavior of the Zuzhu family like a mediocre close minister, and it should even be said that he deliberately let it go. Make trouble, I don't believe you can hold back this good time. The political power and military power are in front of you, and power is at your fingertips. I don't believe you won't lose your eyes. Xuandagong is already far away from the emperor, and I, Li Wanru, am just a clay sculpture of Tai Yi. I can't stop you from doing anything. A hint of mockery appeared on Li Yu's face, looking at Liu Bei after leaving. At the first gathering, the various performances of the head of the Zuzhu family, except for that Chen Ju, made Li Yu a little jealous, and the others said a bad backhand. If not, collect money to do things, so that you can also expand the treasury, and it is reasonable to be greedy for money. Li Yu looked at his subordinates who were crooked and crooked, picked up the teacup indifferently, covered his expression, and the other party stretched out his face to hit my hand, and he was a little sorry for not pulling it back. The Zuzhu family did not expect it at all when they were fantasizing about how to divide the interests of Zuzhu. Now Li Yu, who was sitting in the position of governor, was already thinking about how to divide their family property, and even Chen Gui, who was ready to treat Li Yu cautiously, did not expect that the middle-aged scribe sitting on the main throne would have such ambitions. I didn't expect that the other party also had the ability to divide their family property. On the other side, Lu Su had already received an urgent report from Qingju, and the Qingju yellow turbans once again appeared to gather, and it seemed that they were about to gather millions of people, and Lu Su ordered someone to send it to Zuzhu as soon as he received the information. Then he transferred the information to Guan Yu, who had just returned to Mount Tai. When Guan Yu and others withdrew from Zuzhu, Liu Bei made arrangements according to Chen Shi's proposal, and once the Qingju yellow turban took the lead, the Taishan army stopped resting and recuperating, directly with Guan Yu as the commander, and Guojiao and Liu Yi as the military division to promote Qingju within a month. In short, in a word, if the Qingju yellow turbans stayed there obediently waiting for Liu Beijun to fight, then take their time, and pacify them while fighting, and the yellow turban prisoners were placed on the spot to build a city. And if the yellow turbans moved first, it would be to avoid being driven by other princes. Then quickly push it flat, and then deal with it after disrupting it. My lord, I am willing to persuade the current yellow turban Marshal Guan Hai to surrender. Liao Hua knelt in front of Guan Yu, who was about to send troops, and the deeper he knew about Mount Tai, the more Liao Hua understood the fragility of the Qingju yellow turbans, especially now that the Qingju yellow turbans gathered together. Once Guan Yu was angry and broke with thunder, I am afraid that the Qingju yellow turbans would have to bleed into a river. Yuan Jian, do you know what you're talking about? Guan Yu opened his eyes slightly, and a cold light swept over Liao Hua. Hua, I beg the Lord to give the Qingju yellow turbans a way out. They are just bewitched because they have no food to eat. They are just bewitched. The Qingju yellow turbans are really thirsty for the life of Mount Tai. My lord, please give the Qingju yellow turbans a way to live. Liao Hua knelt on the ground. The Iron Man, no matter how hard or tired he was, he never shed tears, but he shed tears for those comrades in arms. Please give the Qingju yellow turbans a way to live. Zhu Keng also knelt in front of Guan Yu. Once the army went out, he would never return to the division without seeing blood, which was a rule since ancient times. How sure are you? After a long time, Guan Yu spoke. Thank you, we will definitely go all out to persuade Guan Hai to surrender. He has always wanted to join Mount Tai before, but there is no suitable opportunity. I am willing to persuade him to surrender. Liao Hua bowed his head to the ground and said with tears in his eyes, Taishan can accept the yellow turbans, but he will not accept this kind of rebel leader with 1,000,000 troops. Tell him this sentence and let him choose. Guan Yu obviously couldn't speak. If Guojiao and Liu Yi would never say it, they would silently clean up Guan Hai after they really surrendered 1,000,000 Huangjiang. Liao Hua's eyes were full of tears. Jun Hu, what the yellow turbans need is a stable home. They are just bewitched. I am willing to persuade them to surrender. Then you go. Guan Yu glanced at Liao Hua, because it was related to millions of yellow turbans. Guan Yu was also willing to let Liao Hua try. Be careful and safe on the road. Liao Hua will definitely live up to the trust of the Lord. Liao Hua said with blood-red eyes. He swore that even if he died, he would not let Guan Hai bring the more than 1,000,000 yellow turbans who were about to move towards hope into the abyss. Go. Guan Yu said calmly. Liao Hua retreated like this, then took off his armor, changed into the tattered cloth of the previous yellow turban period, wrapped it in a yellow turban, and drove a horse towards the North Sea. Guan Hai is a stubborn person. He will do what he says. No one can convince him. He was already a leader in the Zhongjiao period, but for the life of 1,000,000 yellow turbans and future life considerations, Liao Hua felt that he had to give it a try no matter what, seeing that all the Qingju brothers were about to live a good life. But this kind of thing happened. Liao Hua, who knew that Huangjiang was suffering, was willing to give it a try with his own life. Guan Hai naturally didn't know that he had caused a big disaster, And he was also proud of his plan to gather millions of yellow turbans to surround Beihai and scare Kong Rong. He believed that as long as he surrounded Kong Rong, there would be no month for them to surrender to Liu Bei as a good citizen. The great commander is really good. Our brothers in the western part of Qingju have sent news that Mount Tai is going to exterminate us. Ha ha ha. As soon as they come, we will all surrender, and we will be the people under the rule of Xuan de Gong in the future. A small yellow turban leader proudly informed the leaders of all sizes of the news he had received after the alliance. Ha ha ha, in that case, we won't kill anymore. Don't attack the Beihai Ocean. Yes, just act like the theater in Mount Tai. Guan Hai laughed. He is very proud now. He used to be the first-class leader of the Yellow Turbans in Qingju. Then he is now the boss of the Yellow Turbans, leading the Yellow Turbans to a better life wisely. Chapter 403 The Divine Stone Creates History. Okay, what the great commander said, we will definitely obey. All the big and small leaders said respectfully. They didn't want to leave a bad impression on Mount Tai in the last period of time, and Guan Hai did accelerate the process of them joining Mount Tai. Because of this, they were also happy to recognize Guan Hai as the boss in the last period of time. Then the brothers will say, we will surround and not attack, wait for Mount Tai to attack us, and once the other party comes, we will all go and surrender together. Guan Hai roared. Okay, I am willing to obey the order of the great commander. As for whether Taishan will kill them, after their long-term observation, Zhu Kang, Pei Yuanshao, and Liao Hua are all alive and well, so they feel that it doesn't matter if they surrender if they do this. Chen Shi was speechless when he received this information. Guan Hai is dying. We will also clean you up in a month. What are you in a hurry for? I used to think about whether I could receive Guan Hai under my command, how to say that it was Guan Yu who took more than 30 rounds to cut down to the mast on the ground, put it in this world, just Guan Yu in this period. Guan Hai has no internal qi and will definitely not be able to hold on. Alas, it's a pity. Guan Hai will definitely die. Chen Shi sighed and said, a brave general who charges into battle will lose his brain as soon as he commits a crime. It's just a remnant of the Yellow Turbans. Jioshu sneered. As a remnant of the Yellow Turban at the level of internal qi, it is a pity to die. Chen Shi shook his head and said, internal qi is out of the body? Jioshu was stunned. When did the master of the internal qi leave the body Rotten Street? Why is there even in the Yellow Turbans? This is a prosperous era of military generals. No way, you will see more and more internal qi leaving the body in the future. Chen Shi shrugged his shoulders and said, he should say that people like Cao Hong can actually fight with Ma Chao in the later stage for 50 or 60 rounds and retreat, and it is reasonable to estimate that there will be no less internal qi in the later stage. This shouldn't be. Jioshu frowned and said, you may not know something. I have come into contact with some information about the warriors of the past dynasties in the palace. The internal qi is already the ultimate of the warriors. In fact, there should not be so much. The exact statement has been hundreds of years since the Qin and Han dynasties. Not counting this era, it is just that Xiong Wang is out of the body, and everything else is stuck below that level. Chen Shi was stunned. This is unreasonable. How can it be possible that there has not been a single internal qi that has left the body for hundreds of years? This is what is recorded in the court history books, which is why Wang Yu, as a chivalrous man, became an imperial teacher, because he was the first kendo master to reach the internal qi after Xiong Wang. After that is Tong Yuan. It should be Huang Hansheng who comes down again. Jioshu thought for a while and slowly told Chen Shi the secret information he found in the palace files. This shouldn't be. There are already many masters of internal qi leaving the body. It's impossible. Chen Shi frowned and said, as far as he understood now, although it is indeed difficult to leave the body with internal qi, it will not be like there has not been a single internal qi leaving the body for 400 years. This is a fact. To be accurate, these people should also take the first step towards Lu Fengxian's inner qi at the end of his perfect inner energy. Others, including Wang Yu and Tong Yuan, recorded in the inner court files. It seems that it is just perfection, but judging from the situation recorded in the dossier, they have researched a lot of secret techniques, unique skills, and forbidden techniques to expand their strength after completion. Jioshu thought for a while and said, synthesizing what he learned from the dossier and what he learned from Lu Biyu. If you say so, Tong Yuan and Wang Yu may be able to defeat Lu Fengxian in battle, but in terms of the real realm, they are not as good as Lu Biyu. Chen Shi was stunned directly. This is simply unscientific. Yes, this is the case. Lu Fengxian disdains to study secret techniques. His goal is to break the ban and reach a higher level. For him the secret techniques are just evil and crooked paths. He wants stable and balanced combat effectiveness, not a momentary outbreak. Jioshu said solemnly. From this point of view, Lu Biyu is also a persistent and firm figure. Should he be said to be the best in the world? It is impossible to get to this point without such a mind, but unfortunately his personality is not suitable for the Central Plains. if he stays in Bingjujuyuan to guard the frontier and does not look south for 30 years, even if the incense is dead, it will not be cut off.
Chen, she thought silently. What happened in the previous hundreds of years? How could so many famous generals not encounter a breakthrough? Chen Shi frowned and thought, not to mention the other sons of the plain Liu Xiu's 28 generals of Yuntai should also have a few internal qi out of the body. None of the Han Dynasty dossiers are recorded, that is to say, none of them have reached it, and it can even be said that the vast majority of the fierce generals of the former Han Dynasty will only reach the qi refinement gang. Jioshu's face was extremely strange when he said this. What about after that? If this is the case, wouldn't Xiong Wang be extremely unreasonable? And in the same way, isn't our current situation even more unreasonable? Chen Shi asked curiously. The divine stone appeared twice, not once, Zichuan. It is recorded in the chronicles of Guangwu that meteors fell into the camp at night, and clouds like mountains during the day, fell when the camp fell, and dispersed before the ground ruler, and the officials and soldiers were disgusted. Jioshu told the fact that Chen Shi didn't know at all. Isn't this the record of the Battle of Kunyang? Chen Shi muttered. He remembered that this was a battle that was completely impossible to win against 400,000 elites with 10,000 miscellaneous soldiers. And finally the forbidden spell mage Liu Xiu lost a meteorite plus a fire rain meteor, and caused a great flood, destroying 400,000 elites. You mean that one also has an effect? Only then did Chen Shi realize what Jioshu was talking about. Yes, that one also has an effect. When that divine stone fell, the power that escaped from the half-melted situation made all the 28 generals of Yuntai reach the peak of qi refining into a gang, and also made the only 10,000 horses of Emperor Guangwu have internal qi, but unfortunately after that, the divine stone did not slowly disappear like the previous one, but solidified a shell. Jioshu told Chen Shi the contents of the dossier in detail. What about the divine stone after that? Chen Shi asked curiously. I don't know, it's not in the palace anyway, and it's not recorded in the dossier. Jioshu sighed and said, the palace was also carefully explored. Assuming that the divine stone is gone like the previous one, that can explain the current situation, it is obvious that the effect of the second one is much stronger than the first. Should it be said that it is because of the size? Chen Shi said as calmly as possible. His thoughts were already floating everywhere. It seemed that things were a bit big. Chapter 404 The Divine Stone is a trivial matter. Jioshu's words reminded Chen Shi, now it doesn't seem to be a problem with the divine stone, but a problem with the son of the plain. Wang Mang is obviously a traverser, and he was still ended by the son of the plain in that situation. Ahem, this is not a good thing. If there really is that degree of inevitable causal correction, it will be more tricky, although the world can still be swept away, but the difficulty is from difficulty, directly over hell, nightmares, into the god of war, inevitable causal correction. First assume that there is an inevitable causal correction force, then in terms of the general trend, it can only be history that is corrected, and when this history expands to a certain extent, it does not matter whether the historical node characters are alive or dead. Just like Wang Mang hunted down a Liu Xiu, and another Liu Xiu appeared later. Chen Shi pinched his eyebrows and thought, what is the general trend? The Battle of Guanju was established in the north, and the Battle of Chibi was divided into 3 parts of the world, and the last 3 returned to Jin? Basically, you can abandon the general trend as people. If the general trend is the change of dynasty, then Wang Mang should be in accordance with the situation, and there is indeed no bad luck in the early stage. But now it seems that the general trend in the later stage is on Emperor Guangwu, which is in conflict with the previous one, that is, either Wang Mang died? Chen Shi thought speechlessly. Insufficient information, although it has been guessed that the entire world will have a master's historical trend, and the correction force is also based on this original historical template, but it has been determined that each parallel world will be slightly different. Chen Shi frowned and thought, that is to say, different. Are allowed. Chen Shi thought a lot. But in the end, I can only end my thoughts. There is little information on this aspect itself, and there are not many examples of it. Based on speculation, it is still a little uncertain. It seems that it still needs to be tempted little by little. At least so far there have been no superlarge coincidences and accidents. That is to say, it has not touched the nerves yet. Chen Shi estimated in his heart that if he hadn't scratched his nerves now, there would be too many places to operate. From the current situation, there are many things that can be operated. Assuming that the general trend is history, and Cao Cao, Liu Bei, and others are historical nodes. It is usually not easy to kill before completing the historical task, which is considered a small trend, which means that every historical figure has his own destiny. Chen Shi's face was obviously much better, and it seemed that he only needed to confirm one more thing. Since they all have their own destiny. So I guess I know how. Zichuan, what do I think you were a little restless just now, and you were a little in a trance. Jioshu asked puzzledly. Didn't he just hear that there was another divine stone? The strength of the generals is rising. Isn't their strength also rising? It's nothing, just thinking of something. Chen Shi's eyes flashed with a touch of helplessness. Some things can only be borne by himself. Even if one person counts the short, everyone counts the long. Chen Shi also knew that it was best not to tell others about these things. If he told Liu Guanzhang and others, your life's efforts are not the result of hard work, and it has been proven that this is just a destiny, and probably even the best people will have a sense of frustration. It's endless fun to fight with the sky. Chen Shi's face showed an incomprehensible mocking look. What else is there to say at this point? Liu Bei's ideals. His ideals are intertwined. It is not an exaggeration to say that he is like-minded. He can't retreat. This world must be reached by Liu Bei. Jioshu looked at Chen Shi puzzled. What is the situation? And said such a sentence without beginning or end. One her doesn't have to care. Chen Shi opened the fan to cover his expression and said with a chuckle, I just remembered some things, and I will ask when he to contribute a lot in the future. We need to unite and fight with the heroes of this world. Let them succumb to our surging trend. Okay. Jioshu looked at Chen Shi's fanatical eyes, coped weakly, and then muttered to himself, it's time again. It seems that Zichuan and the Lord will enter the frenzy stage every once in a while. Jioshu didn't know that there was a word called middle two, otherwise. He will understand that Chen Shi has perfectly explained the meaning of this word. Chen Shi sometimes has good ears, and Jioshu's muttering reached Chen Shi's ears word for word, and Chen Shi was a little embarrassed, and then waved a folding fan and knocked on Jioshu in anger. Jioshu smiled darkly, used his dark folding fan to set up the fan that Chen Shi knocked over, and knocked on Chen Shi with his backhand, and the two of them waved their respective fans directly and fought in the carriage. 2 days after Liu Bei received the information about the Qingju yellow turbans, Yuan Shao's side also received information about the Qingju yellow turbans. This Qingju yellow turban is really a big deal, and it is another army of 1 million. And it is still under the leadership of the yellow turban leader. Yuan Shao laughed. He just wanted to add to Liu Bei's blockage, since he couldn't stop the matter in Zuzhu. Then he tried to slow down Liu Bei's development, but he didn't expect that when he fell asleep, someone handed him a pillow. Lord, we can use Guanhai's hand to hold Liu Xuanda. As long as the million yellow turbans do not attack arbitrarily and hug each other, it is not easy for Liu Xuanda to accept Qingju. Xiu stepped forward for the first time and saluted Yuan Shao. What Ziyuan said makes sense. The review took a look at Shuyu, although he and Shu Yuzheng were at odds, but Yuan Shao, who was still monolithic, had not yet reached the time to pull each other's back. Qingju yellow turbans are short of food, and we are not short of grain and grass in Jizhou, and we can use grain and grass to drive them. Guanhai is not pretended to be a general under Liu Xuanda. The reason for the siege of Beihai is for grain and grass. What the two said is to drive it with grain and grass, and we can also add officials and titles to the yellow turban commanders, and canonize them as governors of various counties in Qingju. Ju Shou also stood up and said, since everyone says that this should be the case, then we will contact the Qingju yellow turban now and tell Guanhai that as long as he can delay until June this year, I, Yuan Benchu, will give him 1 million stones of grain and grass, and now I can give him 10% first. And asked for the decree to canonize him as the governor of Qingju, and everything in Qingju was controlled by him. Yuan Shao saw that all the strategists agreed, and after a little thought, he said, since the rise of the Taishan Chamber of Commerce, the deposit has been widely circulated. Yuan Shao, who was rich and wealthy, naturally did not take the 100,000 stones of grain to heart, and even directly ordered Meng Dai to lead 1,000 soldiers to escort 100,000 stones of grain and grass to Qingju Beihai in order to show his sincerity. Sometimes courage determines the height of a person, whether it is successful or not. Yuan Shao plans to hand over the 100,000 stones of grain to Guanhai. After all, in Yuan Shao's intelligence, Guanhai will inevitably have to fight Liu Bei. Even if he does not cooperate with him, he can add to Liu Bei's blockage. Yuan Shao is also willing to do it. Chapter 405 Yellow Turbans. When Liao Hua reached the Beihai Sea, he did not stop the yellow turbans, and when he reached the yellow turban camp, the yellow turbans still did not stop him, and when he was about to reach the inner village of the camp, 2 yellow turban guards stopped Liao Hua. Tell Guanhai that it was Liao Hua, the former leader of the yellow turbans, who came to visit. Liao Hua said to the 2 yellow turban guards with a dark face. Liao Hua, who came all the way, after Guan Yu's education, felt more and more that the yellow turban army was weak. There were no scouts, no patrols, no secret posts, and there was no way to verify whether someone had mixed in, and only relied on a piece of blood and courage to fight, which could only be defeated. Ha ha ha, Brother Liao, you're here. Guanhai's loud voice came from the inner village. What are you stopping him for? This is our yellow turban brothers. If it weren't for him and Zhu Kang, Yuan Shao would have gone to test for us.
Until now we can only nest in Qingju. How can we have the courage to surrender to Mount Tai?
What? Guan Hai, you said you want to surrender to Mount Tai.
Liao Hua was taken aback. In that case, why do you want to gather millions of people to besiege Beihai? Kong Beihai has already sent a rescue letter, asking General Guan to send troops to exterminate you.
Don't worry, don't worry. Guan Hai Man said nonchalantly.
Don't worry, the fire is about to burn to the eyebrows. General Guan is going to send troops to strangle you. Why do you want to surrender? You are joking with the lives of millions of Yellow Turban brothers.
Liao Hua roared angrily. Liao Yuanjian, make your words clear to me. Who jokes about the lives of millions of Yellow Turban brothers?
Guan Hai asked angrily. You kid is full of men. You don't know that hungry men are hungry. We are waiting for Xuan Dagong to take us down. The infrastructure construction team in western Qingju is also gone. We don't have a place to eat, and I don't gather my brothers to find a way.
Are they all starving to death? Your method is wrong.
You should surrender instead of leading your brothers to besiege the North Sea. Liao Hua also roared with a black face. Do you know that your behavior has completely disrupted the rhythm of Mount Tai? Originally General Guan will send troops in a month, and at that time, as long as he surrenders, General Guan will directly accept it, and then build a city on the spot.
Do you know what it means to build a city? A month.
You don't want to think about what time it is.
It's spring.
We have no surplus food, and our brothers will die at least tens of thousands in a month.
Guan Hai roared angrily at Liao Hua. I don't gather my brothers. Will Taishan send troops at this time? Will it? Will it?
Liao Hua looked at Guan Hai and didn't speak. He was also from the Yellow Turbans. He knew nothing more about the Qingju Yellow Turbans. Guan Hai was telling the truth.
A month later.
Although there are still more than 1 million Yellow Turbans, tens of thousands of them can no longer wake up. I, Guan Hai, gathered millions of people, restrained the Yellow Turban brothers, and surrounded but did not attack, just to wait for Mount Tai to send troops. Only in this way can we force Mount Tai to send troops. The more we have troops, the more Duke Xuanda will attach importance to. At that time, as long as they send troops to the North Sea, I will lead 1 million Yellow Turbans to surrender.
Guan Hai said with blood-red eyes. I never thought about dominating one side.
The Yellow Turbans are bitter, so bitter that no one hurts, no one loves. They are thieves who die more or less, and finally have the opportunity to have fields, houses, wives, sons, and daughters. Such an opportunity is in front of us. How can we not cherish it? Guan Hai grabbed Liao Hua's shoulder and said, surrounded by a circle of Yellow Turban commanders, all of whom nodded with red eyes.
Guan Hai.
Liao Hua muttered and opened his mouth full of bitterness. Yes, only the Yellow Turban himself knows the suffering of the Yellow Turbans. Guan Hai is competing with the sky. He is not wrong. He just wants to lead his brothers to live a better life. He gathered millions of people to let these people live the days they have always hoped for one day earlier. He waited for Liu Bei to subdue Qingju, and he was waiting for him to wear it, and he had no choice but to make this decision.
Yuan Jian, go back and tell General Guan that as long as he comes, we will surrender.
Guan Hai stretched out his hand and pressed Liao Hua's shoulder and said extremely solemnly, Guan Hai, I'll stay here first. There are some things I need to tell you. Liao Hua said bitterly, if the Yellow Turban wants to live peacefully, then there can be no leading figure, and a person with great prestige must not live. Ha ha ha, then stay here. We are all acquaintances, so we won't treat you well. You know what we are doing. Guan Hai said indifferently, for the Yellow Turbans, who only have 10 days of military rations, they can save as much as they can, and Guan Hai is reluctant to eat more. After saying that, Guan Hai took a circle of people to sweep Liao Hua away, and the banquet and hospitality that should have been there were also exempted. When is this? Extravagance and waste are absolutely not allowed for the Yellow Turbans. Just make up a wild vegetable dumpling in the evening.
This thing is for you.
After Liao Hua led his horse, he took out a piece of air-dried mutton from a backpack and threw it to Guan Hai, who had a dish. Eat, old brother is not easy anymore.
Good thing.
After Guan Hai caught it, he sniffed the smell of meat fiercely, and his saliva was about to flow, but he still accepted it. Chop it up and make porridge for the big guy to eat at night.
Alas.
Liao Hua sighed. Seeing Guan Hai's behavior, he had an inexplicable feeling, so he walked up to Guan Hai and whispered, I have something to say to you in the evening. Guan Hai nodded, didn't say much, directly took Liao Hua to the Chinese army tent, and casually found a place to sit down. Come on, Yuan Jian, tell us the exact situation of Mount Tai now. Our group of people also know the situation of Mount Tai. As long as you know the situation of Mount Tai, we live in the Qingju infrastructure team at mostly listen to people talk about it. You tell us what you have seen with your own eyes, so that we can rest assured. Yes, Boss Liao, let's listen. We have all heard that Mount Tai is rich and gives us a way to live in the Yellow Turbans. But what kind of wealth is it? We don't have a bottom in our hearts now. Do you really have the wife and children who Guan Dasai said? A small chieftain coaxed blindly, and the other big and small commanders also looked at Liao Hua. Everything the Yellow Turban hoped for was in Mount Tai, but whether these were hearsay or veritable depended on Liao Hua's description. They believed that Liao Hua, as their former old brother, would not lie to them. Liao Hua looked at the eyes of the group of Shi and slowly told everything about Mount Tai, and everyone who listened to it had their eyes lit up, wishing they could join Mount Tai now.
Can you really read and read?
Guan Hai said with a dry throat. Taishan really wants to do this. Yuan Jian, you can read. I also learned some. The teacher who taught said that I am very talented. I have learned 1,000 characters, and the Lord recommended me to learn some art of war. Liao Hua scratched his head and said, mentioning Guan Yu and some admiration. Liao Hua is very proud of reading and literacy. Zhu Kang and Pei Yuanxiao were recommended by Guan Yu to read with him, and as a result, Zhu Kang will now write a name. Pei Yuanxiao knows more than 200. He has now passed the 1,000-character text. Guan Yu has taken him and Guan Ping to read the military book. Chapter 406. I'd rather not know. Okay. I didn't expect that one day there would be a scholar among our yellow turbans. This period refers to the talented ones. Guan Hai laughed and said, ha ha, I will surrender in 2 days, and I will learn one too. Come on, write down my name for me. I've been called Guan Hai for so many years, I still don't know how to write those 2 words. Come on, Yuan Jian wrote it out for me to see. It is really not easy for ordinary people to come up with a literate person, and it is already strange for someone like Liao Hua who can already read military books. Seeing Liao Hua write Guan Hai's name on the ground with his hands, a group of large and small commanders happily squeezed over to watch, their eyes full of envy. At the beginning, the big leader Xian Jiao gave us the opportunity with his life, and Xuan Dagong had already said that he would teach the people under his rule to read. Liao Hua thought of the big leader he had never met, and there was obviously a hint of admiration in his eyes. As expected of Xuan Dagong, ha ha, I have never called others gong so smoothly. Guan Hai looked at the 2 words on the ground, vaguely impressed. Zhong Jiao seemed to have this shape when he wrote his name before. Boss Liao, help write out the names of the brothers. We haven't seen our own names yet. A commander next to him shouted, and then got all the echoes. No problem. Liao Hua nodded and said, and then wrote the names of everyone present on the ground. Everyone was excited, and they also had more admiration when they looked at Liao Hua, and literate people were always so admirable. That night, Liao Hua brought the gourd of disinfection spirits and carried an air-dried chicken to Guan Hai's tent. It is said that there are not many tents of the yellow turbans, and many of the yellow turbans who came here even directly got some firewood and threw themselves on the ground, and then rested like that. There is no covering either. Yuan Jian, you have something to say to me. Guan Hai saw that Liao Hua was carrying something drooling, eating vegetable dumplings for so long, there was no oil star in his mouth, and he couldn't help but swallow saliva when he saw the air-dried chicken. Eat. Let's talk about it after eating. Liao Hua handed both the air-dried chicken and a gourd of wine to Guan Hai. Guan Hai took the air-dried chicken and wine, a little overwhelmed. Finally, he sighed and put down the chicken and wine. Yuan Jian has something to say. A fan brother can't even eat enough dumplings. I can't eat this thing, just chop it up and make porridge. If it weren't for this kind of mutual support of the yellow turbans, they would have become a ball of loose sand. Qingju yellow turban can always exist. There is no mutual conquest. In addition to the suppression of powerful figures, it is also related to the loyalty between the yellow turbans. Alas, Guan Hai, do you know? You're in big trouble. Liao Hua directly opened the wine gourd, took out the bamboo pipe, and poured a glass for each of them. What catastrophe? Guan Hai said puzzledly, if it is because I besiege the North Sea. When the time comes, I can surrender, and I don't have to worry about it at all. The aroma of wine is tempting. Seeing that Liao Hua poured himself a glass, Guan Hai also picked it up and drank it in small sips. The last time he drank, Guan Hai couldn't remember what was the last time he drank, but this time the wine was really delicious. Do you remember the former big leader, General Qiangong's apprentice Xian Jiao? Liao Hua sighed and said, how can I remember? That is the hero of our yellow turbans, but we are constantly worshipping all year round. Guan Hai said dissatisfiedly, if there is no big leader, you kid can be in Mount Tai now, can read. I remember, without the big leader, we yellow turbans can only be trapped in this Qingju, and sooner or later we will be exterminated, and the big leader will use his life to pave a broad road for us. Liao Hua's eyes were obviously filled with tears, and it was precisely because of reading that he understood things that he didn't understand before. He now understood. Yes, there is no big leader, we yellow turbans, there is only one dead end. Guan Hai said a little dull while drinking, but why does the big leader have to die?
I used to think that Taishan didn't want the commander of the Yellow Turbans, but you and Yuanfu are fine. Why is the big leader going to die? Because the big leader is not dead, the Yellow Turban will always be the Yellow Turban. As long as the big leader raises his arm and shouts, the Yellow Turban will fight for it. This is a hidden danger, Yuanfu, and I can't do this. Do you understand? Liao Hua looked at Guan Hai and explained extremely solemnly. I don't understand. Guan Hai shook his head and said, the big leader has paid so much for us, he asked us to help, shouldn't we help? Could it be that you Liao Yuanjian won't go? The grace of dripping water should be repaid by the spring. Liao Hua said solemnly. As expected of a scholar, this is a good thing. Guan Hai patted Liao Hua on the shoulder and said, that's the reason, the big leader has done so much for us, shouldn't we do something for the big leader? Liao Hua looked at the strong man in front of him, and felt a kind of sadness for the first time. Guan Hai couldn't understand this at all. We should repay the big leader, but as long as the big leader raises his arms and shouts, there will be a situation of the Qiangong general back then. Can Xuan Degong not be on guard? Take 10,000 steps back and think about it. You are Xuan Degong, you have governed the world, but there is a person who can destroy all this at any time. What will you do? Liao Hua explained to Guan Hai what he could think of. How come? If the boss were alive, he would never do this. Guan Hai said extremely simply. Just in case, and if the big leader is alive, we will not have such a life, and the Yellow Turban will always be guarded by Xuan Degong. Liao Hua said dully. This time Guan Hai didn't answer, he nodded towards Liao Hua as if he understood. By the way, Yuan Jian, what exactly do you want to say? I still don't understand. Guan Hai picked up his wine glass slightly distracted, and drank it for a long time before noticing that there was no smell of wine, so he looked down and found that there was no wine, and then he reacted, scratched the back of his head and said with some confusion. Alas, it seems that there is no way to explain it to you in a short time. Liao Hua sighed and said, he really couldn't say to his friends, only if you die, the remnants of the Yellow Turbans in Qingju can be saved. Hehehe. Guan Hai said with a dry smile, no way, I'm stupid, I can't compare with you, let's be the same as Zhu Kang, we can fight, and our heads are stupid. Liao Hua didn't say anything more, just looked at Guan Hai's stupid look and sighed silently. When Guan Hai tossed and turned thinking about what Liao Hua said, he fell asleep thinking about it, but within an hour, Guan Hai woke up suddenly, and he, who was originally confused, suddenly had a deep feeling for what Liao Hua said, and instantly he understood what Liao Hua had always wanted to say, but did not dare to speak. It turns out that I am now like the original leader, only when I die, the Yellow Turbans will be accepted by Mount Tai, raise their arms and shout. Yes, now I only need to raise my arms and shout, there will be more than 1 million Yellow Turbans to follow. Is this the reason for death? No wonder Yuan Jian can't open his mouth. Guan Hai thought bitterly in his chest, he would rather be stupid and not know this. Chapter 407 I am not reconciled. Guan Hai looked at his hand holding the gun, seeing the beautiful life beckoning to him, originally thinking that as long as he surrendered, everything would be blameless. But the reality was like this, is this fate? I don't want to die. Guan Hai had a breath in his chest that he wanted to vent, but he couldn't make a sound. Why do I have to die? Thinking of this, Guan Hai couldn't help but be evil to the side of the courage. I am not the leader, I can't do it, I can't do it, I don't want to die, if you want me to die, then die with me. Thinking of this, a fierce light slipped through Guan Hai's eyes. The big leader is a saint, Guan Hai is not, he can't do it. He doesn't want to die. The next day, Guan Hai walked out of his tent with a depressed expression, with a dark circle under his eyes, looking at who was a little unpleasant. This situation obviously puzzled a group of leaders and Liao Hua. Wasn't it okay before? Has anyone committed this in the hands of the great leader Guan? Boss Liao, what did you say to Boss Guan yesterday? Why is Boss Guan in such a situation? A small commander stabbed Liao Hua next to him with his elbow. I didn't say anything. Liao Hua said puzzledly. Guan Hai obviously didn't understand it yesterday. If he did, according to Guan Hai's temper, it would definitely be irritable, and it shouldn't be like this. Guan Hai glanced at Liao Hua, saw that the other party looked puzzled, and didn't say anything. One person sent a vegetable dumpling to eat, and then took a few guards to patrol the camp. In the next few days, every time Liao Hua wanted to have a good talk with Guan Hai in private, Guan Hai was a little impatient, or he shirked that he had something to do, or avoid it in advance, which made Liao Hua very puzzled, and he didn't understand what Guan Hai was doing at all. Liao Hua came to Beihai on the 6th day. Guan Hai summoned a group of large and small leaders to discuss matters, and naturally did not avoid Liao Hua as before. What is the matter with the great commander summoning us? A small commander casually found a place to sit down and asked, and everyone else stared at Guan Hai. We only have 1 day's worth of food left. Guan Hai said helplessly, food is always a trouble, and the Yellow Turban has never had surplus food. The leaders all looked at each other, although they had long known that time passed quickly, but they didn't expect it. There was no food so soon. What should I do? A commander jumped up directly. How can we besiege the North Sea without food? There is no food nearby. Kong Bei Hai probably won't lend us food. Yuan Jian, when will the Taishan army arrive? Guan Hai lowered his head, so that people couldn't see his expression. Probably the grain and grass have just been in place, and the army will need 5 days. Liao Hua said with a wry smile. The 3 armies did not move grain and grass first, which is the consistent method of using troops. If it had been known that the Yellow Turbans would have surrendered directly, these grain and grass would have been mainly used for rescue, not as they are now. 5 days. Suddenly there was a scream in the Yellow Turban tent. We need to find a way to solve the problem of grain and grass, otherwise even if the Taishan army arrives, we will surrender directly. I am afraid that there will be a lot of trouble, Yuan Jian also said before, because we disrupted the layout of Mount Tai. Guan Hai did not continue. Everyone understood the meaning of the words. I have sent the letter back. In the letter, it was stated that the Qingju Yellow Turbans were willing to surrender, and presumably Lu Taisho would prepare in advance. Liao Hua stood up and said. But he couldn't help but glance at Guan Hai. Although Guan Hai didn't pay attention to Liao Hua's eyes, he also felt that Liao Hua's eyes stayed on him for a while. Coupled with Liao Hua's sentence that the Qingju Yellow Turbans were willing to surrender, he couldn't help but feel a bulge in his heart, and then thought of the current tragic situation of the Yellow Turbans, and felt a burst of sadness in his heart, and then felt angry. What am I going to do? Should I kill myself for the Yellow Turbans like you? Does the road of the Yellow Turbans have to be paved by my death? I'm unwilling. I'm so unwilling. I am also a Yellow Turban. I suffer the same suffering as them. I suffer the same tiredness as them. Why can they walk on the road paved by you with your life? Why? Big leader, if you have a spirit in heaven, just tell me the facts today. What should I do? Guan Hai shouted sadly in his heart. He really didn't want to die, but he also understood that if he didn't die, no one would accept the million Yellow Turbans in Qingju with confidence. He was now the leader. Report. A Yellow Turban guard rushed in at this time. Good news, good news. What good news? Guan Hai glanced at the guards with a gloomy face and said, the Taishan army is coming? No, it was Yuan Shao's envoy who came, and he said that he brought 100,000 stones of grain and wanted to make friends with our Yellow Turbans. 100,000 stones of grain. The Yellow Turban guard said excitedly. What? Guan Hai stood up and roared. Although the others were shocked by Guan Hai's reaction, they all stood up in surprise when they thought of 100,000 stones of grain, and they didn't have the heart to think about other things. 100,000 stones of grain, even if more than 1 million people saved some food, they could last for 7 or 8 days, and with these 7 or 8 days as a buffer, everything was easy to do. Big leader, is this the inspiration you gave me? That's right, it's only you. It seems that you are not willing to let the Yellow Turban decline like this. I don't want to die. In that case, let me lead the Yellow Turban to make the last stand. Just lose like this, or win. Guan Hai looked up to the sky and sighed, feeling a little lost unconsciously. Is this right? I always feel that the big boss should not be like this. Guan Hai felt that it shouldn't be like this soon after making a choice, but then the will to survive suppressed Guan Hai's idea of continuing to think, because he knew that he could no longer be confused. The Taishan army was coming, or Guan Hai was also worried that he would be shaken if he thought about it again. Let's go meet the food. Guan Hai laughed. It seems that we can still hold on for a while. It is said that Meng Dai's evaluation of the Yellow Turbans is getting lower and lower along the way, and for this group of women, children, old and children who are not even equipped with weapons, Meng Dai feels that he can defeat them with only 10,000 infantry and cavalry, and where is this kind of team worth 100,000 stones of grain? When he saw Guan Hai and others, Meng Dai was even more disappointed. Just this group of Yellow Turban commanders who had dishes and were a little sluggish in spirit, could really drag down Liu Xuanda's development. What a joke. Taking advantage of the opportunity of Guan Hai and others coming, Meng Dai thought carefully and found that when he came to Qingju, Feng Ji's plan told him was more reasonable, and he took advantage of the Yellow Turban commander to come to greet him together, seized the opportunity to directly kill all the Yellow Turban leaders, and then used food to induce the Yellow Turban to be bandits in the Qingju and Taishan areas, and the wanton destruction seemed to cause greater damage to Liu Bei. Meng Dai licked his lips. In his opinion, this group of Yellow Turban commanders basically had no combat effectiveness. As long as he reacted quickly, killed all the people before the Yellow Turban reacted, and then used Yuan Shao's order to canonize those spies lurking in the Yellow Turbans, the possibility of success in this matter was not small. Chapter 408 Hit the Stone with an Egg. Thinking of this, Meng Dai made a gesture to the personal soldiers behind him, and then the personal soldiers quickly notified the cadres of the escort of grain and grass to prepare to implement the second plan. After seeing the weakness of the yellow turbans, Meng Dai had considered whether to implement Feng Yuantu's plan, and because of this, he also made special arrangements for this. When Guan Hai saw the sneer at the corner of Meng Dai's mouth, he was stunned for a moment, and then silently guarded. Brothers, be careful. Yuan Benchu is afraid that he is not well-intentioned. This kid is deceitful. Without waiting for Guan Hai to speak, Liao Hua's voice appeared in the ears of a yellow turban leader. What Yuan Jian said is reasonable. Everyone is on guard. Once the other party makes a move, never show mercy. Guan Hai's voice also appeared in everyone's ears. Compared to Liao Hua's words, it took a moment to think. For Guan Hai's words, these commanders were on guard with a smile on their faces without any thought. None of these yellow turban leaders had the opportunity to come into contact with the real cultivation method, but those who could sit in the position of commanders were all from the killing field, and their own talents were even much higher than the vast majority of warriors of the same level, but unfortunately they could not take a step forward because of various willingness. For example, Guan Hai, who cultivated to the perfection of qi refining into a gang without enough food, was one step away from reaching the peak of a martial artist. Internal qi leaving the body. It can be seen from this how strong Guan Hai's talent is, but unfortunately Guan Hai, who came from a humble background, did not have the opportunity to come into contact with the best internal qi cultivation method, and even missed the best opportunity to practice. Zhong Jiao is a Taoist after all, although there is a method of internal qi cultivation, but it can only be regarded as possible. Presumably this is the martial Guan. The corners of Meng Dai's mouth were slightly drawn up. My lord Yuan Gong pities the misery of the yellow turbans and is willing to borrow 100,000 stones of grain. Yuan Gong is benevolent. Guan Hai sneered in his heart, but he made an extremely grateful expression on his face. General Meng invited. Ha ha ha, no need, I just escorted the grain here, and I can't stay here for long, so please accept the grain first. Meng Dai made a gesture of invitation, and then Guan Hai walked happily towards the baggage team. Feng Yuantu is really powerful. The yellow turban was really negligent when he saw the grain, and my Meng Dai's merits came. Meng Dai lowered his head and laughed wildly in his heart. But he didn't see the cold chill flashing in Guan Hai's eyes. A group of yellow turban commanders also wiped their hands on their bodies with a smile, and then put them on the waist where they could easily touch the weapon, and followed Guan Hai with a smile, without any fear of battle at all. How many times did the Qingju yellow turbans, the predecessor of the Qingju soldiers, fight for food? They may not know that war is about to become a part of their lives. Opening a sack at will, Guan Hai grabbed a handful of rice, threw it directly into his mouth and chewed it, and after a long time he said, "Good goods, thank you Yuan Gong for me." Ha ha ha, Marshal Guan joked. How can we deceive you with low-quality rice? Someone brought me all the other military rations and let the marshal test them one by one. Meng Dai laughed. In this way, more than 1,000 Yuan Shao soldiers gathered and surrounded Guan Hai and the other party in the middle. Not bad, it's all good rice. Guan Hai casually grabbed a few handfuls and ate them raw, then walked to Meng Dai and said, "Is Marshal Guan satisfied?" Meng Dai smiled flatteringly. Satisfied. Guan Hai slowly moved towards Meng Dai, signaling the yellow turban commanders around him to get ready. Since you're satisfied, let's hit the road. Take them down for me. Meng Dai's grain itself was transported to a place with fewer yellow turbans, and now after surrounding Guan Hai and his party, he no longer had any scruples. I know this guy is not well-intentioned. The yellow turban leader Du Yuan took out the brick in his arms, threw the brick on Meng Dai's face, beat it with flesh and blood, and then took out a dagger from his arms, and a flash appeared beside Yuan Jun's soldiers, and he shot again and again, directly tearing open the unformed military formation. I really think the uncle is easy to deal with. The yellow turban pirate Guan Cheng, who had a dish, took out his fork and killed the Yuan soldiers beside him, and a few people suddenly killed several Yuan soldiers who had just surrounded him. Looking for death. Huang Xiao pulled out the sword he had snatched from a scholar, and a donkey rolled around to avoid the attack of the opponent's formed military formation, turned over and jumped up, and beheaded several people on the opposite side with a sword. Jiang Gong, Chu Gong, Li Tiaro, Sima Ju, and others all took out their weapons and killed the soldiers on the opposite side, although they were slightly suppressed by the military formation, but there was no problem with any of them to fight against 10. You must know that the yellow turban commanders who can live to the present are as strong as Guan Hai. Ju can basically enter the internal qi and leave the body as long as there is an opportunity, and the slightly worse ones such as Liao Hua, Guan Cheng, Du Yuan are basically almost at the peak of qi refining. As for Pei Yuan Xiao, Huang Xiao, Jiang Gong, and even worse yellow turban commanders have basically entered qi refinement. Meng Dai's 1,000 people besieged almost 20 Yellow Turban commanders with names and surnames in history, plus more than 40 Yellow Turban commanders who did not leave their names. That is to say, 1,000 miscellaneous soldiers who could not guarantee whether they had internal qi or not, and besieged almost 70 masters of refining qi into gangs. Less than a stick of incense, Du Yuan picked up half of the brick that he had been warming up for a long time, and by the way, he dragged Meng Dai, who was basically breathing, by the collar, and threw it to the uninjured Guan Hai, and then carried his half of the brick into his arms. "How can you be so strong?" Meng Dai said with difficulty. "Ha ha ha." Sima Ju pointed at Meng Dai and laughed so hard that he almost burst into tears. "You are stupid. Don't you know what kind of life the Yellow Turban lived? If there was no strength, it would have been destroyed long ago. Our Yellow Turbans now have at least 70 commanders who have refined qi into gangs. Even if you Jizhou Yuan Benchu has hundreds of generals, but there will be no more generals than our Yellow Turbans. We are all Yellow Turbans who survived on the most cruel battlefield and in the most cruel environment." When Sima Ju said this, all the Yellow Turban commanders were also miserable. Their living environment was too bad, so they would extravagantly live in Mount Tai. When Sima Ju said this, Guan Hai couldn't help but struggle. They lived in the most cruel environment and fought on the most cruel battlefield. Do I really want to do that? The future of the million Yellow Turbans is in my hands. They are already very miserable. Do they continue to be miserable? The elderly have something to rely on, the young have something to teach, farm has land, and there is a house to live in. Guan Hai remembered the life of Mount Tai that Liao Hua told him. "Great Commander, why are you distracted again?" An attentive Yellow Turban commander asked. "It's nothing, a lot of food. Give everyone a full meal at noon." Guan Hai came back to his senses and yelled, and then everyone cheered, and then the entire Yellow Turbans besieging the North Sea cheered collectively after learning the news, and Kong Rong, who was already mentally weak, was even more frightened. Chapter 409 The Taoist Fire is not extinguished. The Yellow Turban is so simple, big leader. Is this what you want me to understand? Listening to the cheers in his ears, Guan Hai looked up at the sky, and the earthy yellow inner qi slowly escaped from his body, and then the color of the inner qi became lighter and lighter, until it became colorless, and the power of the warrior on his body slowly dissipated and became ordinary. "So I'm so stupid too." Guan Hai laughed at himself in his heart, and he didn't have much ecstasy about the achievement of internal qi leaving the body, and he only had peace in his heart. Where righteousness is, even if you die, you have no regrets. Guan Hai's brain appeared with such a sentence, and the original bitter smile on his face disappeared. After all, someone needs to carry all this. Big leader, I understand your original thoughts. Someone will always stand up. In this case, I will stand up. At this moment, Guan Hai also clearly understood the transformation that had occurred in him, because his state of mind had changed, and he even let go of his life. Grain is taken away. Guan Hai learned to transmit sound without a teacher, and the not too loud sound directly covered dozens of miles in a radius. A group of Yellow Turban commanders cheered. Even if they were fools, they understood that Guan Hai, who had emerged from the internal qi before, had reached the highest level of martial artists, and the internal qi had left the body. Congratulations to the great commander. Congratulations. A group of large and small commanders all rushed up and bowed to Guan Hai. They all looked very excited. Some of their Yellow Turbans actually reached the internal qi of leaving the body, which is simply incredible. He. Guan Hai smiled calmly. Until death came, he had nothing to fear, the future of the million Yellow Turbans, compared with his life. His life really doesn't matter. Guan Hai gave the steamed buns to each Yellow Turban, and then found a place to start eating, without any other dishes. For the hungry Yellow Turbans, there is nothing more satisfying than steamed buns. It's so cool. A Yellow Turban leader cheered after eating 2 big steamed buns in 2 or 3 bites, and when he stood up, he couldn't help but look at the steamer and wanted to get another one, then sighed and sat on the ground silently. I remember when I was working in the Taishan infrastructure construction team, it was good to have steamed buns to eat. Jiang Gong broke the steamed buns into pieces, and then said while eating, "A group of warriors who refine qi into a gang. If it weren't for the Yellow Turban background, every day, let alone steamed buns, big fish and meat every day would not be a problem. Even if they only need to hide their identity to take refuge in a prince, the other party will turn a blind eye to accept it." Unfortunately, the Yellow Turbans that supported this period were dragged down by their subordinates, women, children, old and children, and they had no intention of leaving. What they need is a prince who can take them all. Instead of picking out all the young and strong like picking vegetables, and then starving everyone else, it is precisely because of this that this group of people were like Liu Bei, because only Liu Bei will not mind those women, children, old and children who do not have much productivity. It will be soon. Guan Hai said calmly, He didn't feel sad now, only a kind of calm. He had already looked away. Yuan Jian, come with me. Guan Hai stood up after eating the steamed buns and said to Liao Hua, who divided a steamed bun into 4 pieces and gave them to Du Yuan and a few people. Okay. Liao Hua originally planned to tease Du Yuan again. Sima Ju, Guan Cheng 3 acquaintances. When Guan Hai called him, he had no thoughts, so he gave the steamed buns to each of the 3 of them, ate a small piece and chased towards Guan Hai. Guan Hai, what's the matter? Liao Hua watched curiously as Guan Hai took himself to a remote place. Is Guan Yunchang a benevolent and trustworthy person? Guan Hai leaned against a big tree that had been stripped of its skin. General Guan is a loyal and righteous person. Although Liao Hua was puzzled, he didn't talk nonsense, and told everything he knew about Guan Yu. That's fine. A smile appeared on Guan Hai's face. Go back and tell Guan Yunchang that I am willing to follow the righteous deeds of the big leader back then. But I can't be so indifferent as the big leader. I want to die under his knife. I want to see what the ultimate master who has left his body is like. Guan Hai. Liao Hua was shocked and stood up directly. Don't be surprised. Guan Hai leaned casually on the trunk of the tree, looking up at the white clouds in the sky. I was also unwilling, but in the end I still figured it out. What the Yellow Turbans need is not a hero who responds to 100 calls. What they need is a peaceful life, a mouthful of food, and a piece of land. Liao Hua listened to Guan Hai's casual words, and didn't know why he felt a sour feeling in his eyes. Yuan Jian, I can't see the life of the Yellow Turbans in the future, but I know that many of our Yellow Turban leaders will still go to the battlefield, and I hope General Guan can take care of them a little because of my death. Guan Hai indifferently explained his last words to Liao Hua, without any fear or unwillingness. We Yellow Turbans only want to be treated as an ordinary person. Tell Guan Yunchang, if he agrees to this, I will give Taishan a satisfactory explanation like a big leader. I have more commanders than the big leader. Chen Pai, Fuyun's 3 garbage, only a small group of Yellow Turbans to follow when sending troops, and I have 70 large and small commanders to follow, as long as Guan Yunchang gives me a satisfactory answer. I will persuade all the commanders for him and Liu Xuande. Guan Hai had a look of hope on his face. He felt that he had comprehended the benevolence of the big leader at the beginning, and also understood the choice of the big leader. Guan Hai, I. Liao Hua knelt in front of Guan Hai. He knew very well that Guan Hai was an ironclad man, and he could say this. That is, he was really willing to die for 1,000,000 Yellow Turbans. Such ethics, which made Liao Hua, who had never dared to speak, admire him, and there was another hero among the Yellow Turbans. You go and tell Guan Yunchang this. Tell him, even if Guan Yunchang can't do it, I am willing to die. You have already told me the life of Mount Tai. I think that kind of life is worth my life to exchange for the Yellow Turbans. Guan Hai smiled a little helplessly. He didn't have the capital to negotiate with Guan Yu, but for the survival of millions of Yellow Turbans, he was willing to die, just like the original leader. Guan Hai, I, Liao Yuanjian, swear to tell General Guan word for word what you said today, and I am willing to use my life to ask for it. Liao Hua knelt in front of Guan Hai, his eyes overflowing with tears, and said, Let's go, hurry up and tell Guan Yunchang these words. I'm waiting for your news. When the Yellow Turbans are going to die, someone always needs to stand up. Last time it was the big leader. This time there is me, Guan Hai. The Dao fire is not extinguished. The Dao fire is not extinguished. Guan Hai muttered to himself. He was already qualified to say this. I'm leaving. I'll go tell General Guan all the situation of the Qingju Yellow Turbans now. Guan Hai, wait for my news. Even if you die under General Guan's sword, I will take care of your brothers for you. The luckiest thing for our Qingju Yellow Turbans is that there is a big leader in you, and someone stands up at the most dangerous time. Liao Hua bowed to Guan Hai-san, then stood up and said bitterly but passionately. Chapter 410 Seeking Benevolence and Benevolence, Peaks and Turns. Guan Hai looked at Liao Hua's distant back, silently looked up to the sky and sighed. His inner chi left his body. As long as he wanted to leave, it was almost impossible for anyone to stop him. But only when he died, these 1,000,000 Yellow Turbans were really counted as ownerless. Guan Yu received the news of Guan Hai's return as soon as possible, and then Guo Jiao and Liu Yi were arrested by Guan Yu and prepared to listen to Liao Hua's information together. Liao Hua retold all the things in Beihai to the 3 of them with bloodshot eyes, and suddenly Guo Jiao and Liu Yi looked at each other. He is truly a righteous man. Guan Yu touched his beard. Dan Feng's eyes opened slightly, and he rarely praised a person. Unlike Zhong Bie's kind of acting, Guan Hai's real sacrifice of life for righteousness, Guan Yu's loyal people felt deeper. I finally understood what Sichuan said. Righteousness kills more dogs. This sentence is really not a joke. Guo Jiao and Liu Yi were obviously a little embarrassed, although Guan Yu saved them face, but they also heard Chen Shi say this sentence when he was joking, giggling at the time, and now it is really embarrassing for them to say it out of Guan Yu's mouth. Ask General Guan to give Guan Hai a way out. Taking advantage of Guan Yu's good mood, Liao Hua immediately requested. No. Guo Jiao and Liu Yi spoke.
Guan Yu sighed. Yuan Jian, you have read so many books, you must understand why. Guan Hai must die. He is the same as the original Yellow Turban leader. He is a hero, but only his death can put an end to this matter. Guan Yu admires Guan Hai very much. To be precise, Guan Yu appreciates those loyal guys, and Guan Hai meets this standard very much. So he planned to find a way to keep Guan Hai, but it was obvious that this matter was very difficult. After all, after this incident, Guan Hai became the second monument in the heart of the Yellow Turbans, if he did not die. The trouble is really big, and he is also different from Zhong Ba. Even if Zhong Ba is now exposed, the Yellow Turbans are at most disappointed in the original incident, and even completely took the image of the big leader out of Zhong Ba. If Guan Hai is in trouble, it will be much more troublesome if Guan Hai does not die. After being discovered, it is absolutely impossible to simply reveal it like the big boss. Yuan Jian, you can tell Guan Hai that I have agreed to everything he asked. And I, Guan Yunchang, promised that I would treat the Yellow Turbans of Qingju equally in this life, and the Yellow Turban leaders were not to blame in the past, and by the way, tell him what else he wanted. Say it together. I, Guan Yunchang Jing, respect him as a man, don't take him for him without violating morality. Guan Yu stood up and said majestically, Thank you, my lord. Liao Hua's name for Guan Yu once again became the commonly used lord, rather than the estranged General Guan as before. Hurry up. Guan Yu waved his hand at Liao Hua and motioned for the other party to hurry up and inform Guan Hai. After Liao Hua left, Guan Yu asked Guo Jiao and Liu Yi for advice, although he had believed 90% of Liao Hua's words, but he didn't want to leave an arbitrary image in front of the two. I don't know what the two military divisions think. Guan Yu asked with half-squinted eyes. He still respected Liu Bei's current vote, civil servant Guan Yu. Similarly, this group of people also knew the actual reason for Guan Yu's arrogance, so they didn't care much about Guan Yu's slightly open eyes. Although it is a bit incredible. But combined with my understanding of the Qingju Yellow Turbans, the possibility of the Qingju Yellow Turbans wanting to surrender is very high. From this point of view, Guan Hai learned that it is indeed possible to emulate the big leader in the current situation. Guo Jiao sighed and said, This person is indeed a righteous man, but it's a pity. Liu Yi also nodded on the side, expressing his sincere appreciation for Guan Hai's self-sacrificing behavior, and he also thought that what Liao Hua said was true 9 times out of 10. In that case, can Guan Hai be? Guan Yu saw that Guo Jiao and Liu Yi had the same idea as him, and couldn't help but feel a lot relieved, and then saw that Guo Jiao and Liu Yi were praising Guan Hai's loyalty just like him, so he spoke. This is not good, although Guan Hai's loyalty touches us, but if Guan Hai does not die after this incident, he will become a new spiritual symbol of the Yellow Turbans, and we have to act like this. Liu Yi sighed and said. Guo Jiao bowed his head silently. He admired Guan Hai's behavior, but it was really troublesome to save Guan Hai from this situation, and the most important thing was that Liu Bei had to agree. As long as Liu Bei agreed, this matter would be easy to say, otherwise even if he was saved, it would not be a good thing. Guan Yu sighed, waved his hand with a gloomy face, signaling that this matter was over. He was very depressed. He himself was very particular about loyalty, and naturally he was very moved by Guan Hai's current righteous deeds. That night, Guan Yu ordered Wei Yang to ride his poor Huang Feijian to Zuzhu quickly, and forced Wei Yang to deliver the answer to him within 3 days. Fortunately, there was this BMW snatched from Cao Cao's hands, otherwise it would only be a fool's dream to do this within 3 days. After reading the letter Liu Bei handed to him, Chen Shi looked at Wei Yang again. There is a long article, and I have to trouble you to hurry to Qingju and tell General Guan to do it according to Feng Xiao's arrangement. Yes. Wei Yang bowed to Chen Shi, then took the letter given by Liu Bei and ran towards Qingju with Chen Shi's words. Do you think there are always some people who are so stupid in this era? Chen Shi retracted his body back into the carriage and said to Jia Shu. Some people have their own rules for survival, and although they may seem silly, they can gain something unexpected. Jia Shu said with an indifferent expression, although he was also shocked by Guan Hai's choice. Sacrificing his life for righteousness has been admired by people since ancient times, but how many people can really do it? Yes, it's so stupid. The choice between Xuan Degong and Guan Hai is really... Chen Shi sighed and said. I didn't want Liu Bei to open the car door and lean in, looking at Chen Shi with a smile on his face. Zichuan, do I look stupid too? Alas. Chen Shi took a breath, although he didn't speak, but his expression had betrayed his thoughts. I don't believe you don't know what I think. Guan Hai's loyalty moved me. How could the righteous men who died for millions of yellow turbans challenge my authority? If I exploit the yellow turban people like the previous officials, then Guan Hai should raise his arms and overthrow me. Liu Bei said calmly.
Although that kind of person is very stupid, but he is really benevolent and righteous. This kind of person does what he says. The requirements of the Yellow Turban are not high. Since I can give them everything they want, then I am willing to believe in Guan Hai. Liu Bei exuded a strong sense of confidence when he said this. If I can't even convince Guan Hai's prestige, how can I sweep the world and then support the Han dynasty? Well, Guan Hai really surprised me. This kind of person can be called a hero in any era, and a hero shouldn't end up like this. Chen Shi sighed and said, which can be regarded as agreeing to what Liu Bei said. Chapter 4:11 The Liu Family. For Liu Bei, this is a matter related to courage. For Guan Hai, it is a matter of life. The height of the stand is different, and the matter of Guan Hai gambling with his life is just a matter of one sentence for Liu Bei now. But how sad is the era that takes heroes to get through? Chen Shi curled his lips and said, to what extent does an era, a nation, and a group need to be miserable before a living being like a hero is needed to shoulder all the responsibilities? This is really sad. Liu Bei also sighed after hearing this, originally thinking that Guan Hai was really a righteous man, but now thinking about it, if it weren't for the Yellow Turbans being forced to this extent, why would he have to make such a sacrifice alone? The Yellow Turban is just for food. Liu Bei sighed and said, the second brother will solve this matter. Now think about it, every hero in ancient times had a lot of helplessness. Heroes are forced to be helpless, whether it is conscience or responsibility, heroes always bear the most, so heroes are always a tragedy. Chen Shi sighed and said. Liu Bei was silent, now thinking that he seemed to have embarked on the road of a hero, the Yellow Turban carried by Guan Hai. After this time, he could put it down, he carried more things. As for letting go, can he let go? A good man can only mature if he takes on enough responsibilities. Liu Bei said such a sentence without beginning or end. Chen Shi and Joshu also sighed. Indeed, a man's maturity depends on the responsibilities he shoulders. Forget it, don't say it, I also have my own responsibilities, and it is not easy to support my family. The ideal is even more distant. Alas, take one step at a time. Chen Shi's words lowered the style that Liu Bei had finally created before by several levels. Liu Bei couldn't squint at Chen Shi. Sichuan, is Qingju the same steps as when Mount Tai was built before? After being interrupted by Chen Shi, Liu Bei turned off and continued to talk about the Yellow Turbans, and changed the topic. The beginning is the same, the back is different, the construction of the city is necessary. I have ordered someone to report to Chang'an before I left. It should be approved when I go back, but I plan to build a port along the eastern coast of Qingju. Chen Shi thought for a while and said, the salt fields built on the islands of the East China Sea should also be relocated back. There is no need to be so careful in the future, and the generals of the middle-level troops can be regarded as having a next home. Salt field? By the way, there are also fishing grounds and dry goods that you used to talk about can also be put on the agenda. It seems that there is also maritime transportation, and the Navy can also train on the spot. However, we do not yet have the technology to build sea ships. When Liu Bei thought of these troubles, he couldn't help but sigh a little. It's not that there is no technology to build sea ships. But we don't have any technology to make ships, and we don't even have craftsmen who make ships, and this kind of craftsman itself is very rare. Chen Shi sighed and said, the only shipbuilding industry that can be said in the entire Three Kingdoms era is the Jiangdong Lu family, the Liaodong Gongsun family, and the Jingju Cai family, all of whom are monopolies, from technology to drawings, from material selection to craftsmen. As for the Zhong family, the Jiyu family, these technologies are not complete. In the past, Chen Shi still wanted to find the complete inheritance of the Mohist family. After all, the Mohist family was definitely a well-deserved boss than the manufacturing industry and the technology Mohist. But unfortunately, although Mohism is a prominent study in the spring and autumn period, it was obviously absorbed by the major schools, and then kicked out, after absorbing the forces of the Chen family. Chen Shi finally traced back to the source to find out the inheritance of the Mohists, but it was not worth finding it. At the end of the spring and autumn period, the Mohists were divided into 3 parts, each reopening the mountain gate with technology, but it was obvious that neither the Mohists hiding in the south nor the Mohists hiding in the north could not carry the calculations of the family. From the information in Chen Shi's hand, it seems that the Mohist family in the middle was finally absorbed by the descendants of the nobles of the Qi state. Anyway, the historical records are relatively vague. It is estimated that it is either the Lu family or the Cai family. In other words, the ancestors of the 2 families seem to be from the land of Qilu, although the relationship between the 2 families cannot be guaranteed. But there is definitely a lot of origin. The Mohist legacy in the north was stirred up during the chaos at the end of the Qin dynasty, and the dead could no longer die. As for the southern batch, it seemed to have been demolished. As for the shipbuilding technology of the Gongsun family in Liaodong, it has been determined that it is not the thing of the Mohists,
As far as Chen Shi comes from the origin of the family from the Chen family. The shipbuilding technology of the Gongsun family seems to have come from the Gongshu family, that is, the craftsmanship of the Gongshu class or Lu Ban, and the ship technology of the Lu family and the Cai family is fundamentally different. Well, the relationship between the Mohists and the Gongshu family is not good, and the craftsmen are divided into two groups, which is really a tragedy. All in all, it is impossible for Chen Shi to get the posthumous pen of the Mohists or the public losers, and it is impossible to build ships, cars, and the technology of creation. Ma Jun seems to have learned the creation of the Mohists, but unfortunately he can't find it. All in all, the inheritance of the bottom of the box of the Mohist school has been divided by the family and has become a family school, and the remaining steamed bun scum is also held in the hands of individuals, passed on to men but not to women, passed on inside and not outside. Didn't we catch up with the Lu family? Liu Bei asked curiously. It's completely two different things. The four Jiangdong companies are very regional. They are willing to build ships for us, because our relationship is similar, and the shots are also generous, but it is impossible for them to fall to us, and there is no way to be forced to go. Chen Shi sighed and said, the four families in Jiangdong are simply invincible. They have to stay in Jiangdong alive and dead. They don't care who is the boss at all. As long as they can stay in Jiangdong happily, they will be very satisfied. Lord, what Sichuan said is reasonable. The Lu family is the kind of family that Sichuan said is dead and unchanged, and they must stay on their own territory, and the manufacturing technology of sea ships and tower ships is definitely a secret to the family with these technologies. If they are really optimistic about us, they will never sell or even design ships for us at a low price. Jioshu also sighed and said, originally, if this kind of behavior were put on hold in the 21st century and placed on a big man of Liu Bei's level, it would definitely be very dissatisfied. It's a pity that in this era 1,800 years ago, there are families who are willing to design ships for you at a low price, and even deliberately free up manpower for you to quickly manufacture the ships you need, only you need to pay for them for you, and they don't care about your repeated mess at all. There are only 4 direct descendants in their family. Why is it so difficult to move? I wrote a large number of welfare sheets for them before, and I said that as long as his family moves in, they will ensure that their family Lu Zun or Lu Ji has a talent like Xiaoji, and that the next generation will produce a character who is not inferior to Xiaoji. Chen Shi sighed and said, if I remember correctly, Lu Kang and Lu Zun are rare father-son files in the Wu Temple. Chapter 412. After all, someone needs to be responsible. Jioshu was directly frightened, and Liu Bei directly opened his mouth without caring about the image and didn't know what to say. Although FA is being used as a mascot in Mount Tai, he himself sometimes makes some mistakes, and even Liu Bei will have something to do for FA Zheng to hone it. But it is undeniable that FA is a genius. In other words, if it is not a genius, there are so many people from top to bottom who will be bored to find something for FA Zheng to do, or create some tricky things for FA Zheng to practice. I think it was your words that scared the Lu family. Even if they originally wanted to move, they would be frightened by your unreliable remarks, and then think carefully about whether they should come or not. Jioshu exhaled and said depressedly, don't make wishes randomly, some words will be shaken. I'm telling the truth, you haven't seen Uncle Lu, that kid Lu Zun. Let's put it this way, did you think there were such smart people in this world before you saw Kongming? Chen Shi sighed and said, Lu Zun is a little worse than Zhuge Kongming, and he is also a wizard-level figure. Jioshu and Liu Bei looked at each other. They had both seen Fa Zheng, and they had both seen Zhuge Liang, and when they first saw Fa Zheng, Jioshu felt that this young man was very promising, very good, and a wizard. After seeing Zhuge Liang appear, although Jioshu did not have much contact with Zhuge Liang, he could also feel that Zhuge Liang's mentality was obviously much better than Fa Zheng, and even his intelligence was slightly better than Fa Zheng in all aspects. If Lu Zun is really what you said, then the value of the Lu family will be higher. The middle level can be cultivated, but the top level must have enough talent in addition to the training that should be had. Jioshu sighed and said, but you shouldn't say that sentence, it's too much. Lu Zun really has the kind of material that Kongming? Liu Bei was obviously a little suspicious. He appreciated Zhuge Liang more than Fa Zheng. After all, Fa Zheng's personality was really a little strange, although Liu Bei was very tolerant of Fa Zheng, but people, they were afraid of comparison. A comparison will bring out everything. Even if not, if you have the same education as Kongming, there will probably be no difference. Chen Shi sighed and said, Lu Zun's bad luck was that he hid in the East for a period of time when he was a child. Otherwise, a good education may not be much worse than Zhuge Liang, but I just don't know what the heart is. Send another letter and invite the other party to come over, the nearest Yuzhou. The border in Yangzhou is a little unpeaceful. Jioshu thought for a while and said, no matter from which point of view the Lu family, Jioshu felt the need to invite. I asked Xingba and Zi to go to Lujiang to change to a new warship after the matter in Qingzhou,
And by the way, let Xingba bring a few words to the Lu family. If the other party is willing to come, he will come. If he doesn't want to, we have no good way. Chen Shi nodded and said, he had already explained these things to Gan Ning. That's fine. If the expectation is not bad, the Battle of Qingju will probably end within a few days. I think it's easier than the last time a million yellow turbans came out of Qingju, Guan Hai. He is indeed a righteous thief. Liu Bei nodded, remembering the Battle of Qingju. He couldn't help but mention Guan Hai again, and his expression was more appreciative. Don't worry, General Guan has been stabbed 3 times, but the result is the same as Hulao Pass. As long as General Guan says that he is dead, who knows the truth about that dusty situation? The coffin is ready, Guan Hai throws it inside, and he can change his face and be a new person in the future, and this kind of righteous thief is also rare. Chen, she said indifferently. This matter will probably make the princes of the world look sideways, but in this way, the matter of Xuangao was completely covered up, and the Montenegrin army would be better to deal with it. Jioshu sighed and said, this time it is really ironclad evidence, and even if someone says that the first time the yellow turbans went out of Qingju to eat was set up by Liu Bei, there was no way to prove it, and Guan Hai turned this matter into true. Sometimes a moment of courage is enough to make many cowards become heroes. Chen, she said with a smile. I found that you are also quite ruthless. Qingju yellow turbans, Montenegro yellow turbans, are also yellow turbans, but the Qingju yellow turban leader sacrificed his life and forgot his death for the yellow turbans, and the Taoist fire was inherited, and the Montenegrin yellow turbans are not ashamed? Jioshu glanced at Chen Shi and said with a sneer, there are too many places where this thing can be manipulated. Guan Yu was only 1 day away from Beihai, and the entire yellow turban camp cheered, and Guan Hai was completely relieved, and Liao Hua brought him the news that made him very satisfied. He could already take over the glory of the big leader without regrets, and was no longer the famous leader like before. Marshal, I still have 2 days of leftovers, so why don't you have a full meal today? Guan Cheng looked at Guan Hai sitting in the main seat with a hippie smile and said, I'm afraid it's not okay to let go of the belly to eat. I'm afraid that a bucket of rice for our group of people is not enough. If we open it up to everyone to eat today, let's continue to steam steamed buns, 2 per person. Guan Hai said calmly, I summoned you to wait for some things to inform you. I am afraid that you will do some irrational things afterwards, and I will give you a day in advance as a buffer. Marshal, listen, what irrational things can we do? Jiang Gong stood up and patted his chest and laughed, and then a group of people and leaders also laughed at each other. Brothers, don't be impatient. Guan Hai's low voice appeared in everyone's ears, and suddenly a group of people stopped shouting, and casually found a place to sit down and prepare to listen to what Guan Hai had to say. I have negotiated with Taishan. We have everything we should have after the surrender of the yellow turbans. If you are willing to be a soldier, you can transfer to the military position, or the Tun Chief, or the military Marquis. If you don't want to go to the battlefield, you can go to the wasteland and farm like ordinary brothers. In terms of military positions, Taishan will treat you equally, and will not treat you poorly because of your background. Guan Hai calmly explained all the treatment promised by Guan Yu, and the yellow turban commander was overjoyed. Looking at the cheers of everyone in the tent, Guan Hai also had a smile on his face. Great commander. What about you? When Guan Hai finished explaining the part about the treatment of the yellow turbans, and most of the yellow turban commanders cheered, Sima Ju and Huang Xiao looked at each other with bitter expressions, and Guan Cheng had already knelt on the ground. There is always someone who needs to be responsible for this matter. The original leader chose to die to save 1 million yellow turbans. Now it's my turn. Now I'm here to inform you. Don't be martyred for me like a fool, and don't be dissatisfied with Mount Tai for me. Guan Hai calmly expressed his purpose, although his words were light, but for this group of happy yellow turban commanders, it was no less than a bolt from the blue. Chapter 4:13 Make this choice. Before Guan Hai opened his mouth to tell the truth, the entire tent cheered, and after he spoke, the entire tent was silent, all looking at Guan Hai stiffly. Big. Great chieftain, say it again. Jiang Gong had already believed it, but he unconsciously knelt on the ground and asked. Guan Hai repeated the previous words, and all the yellow turbans looked at Guan Hai bitterly. Guan Shuai, get out of here while the Taishan army hasn't come yet. With your strength, you can mix anywhere. I'm leaving. What are you going to do? So don't say stupid things. Watch over my brothers for me. Du Yuan, after I die, you watch over your brothers and let them not mess around. Guan Hai glanced at Chen Mao who was standing up, and his eyes fell on Du Yuan, who was leading the gang. Guan Shuai, it's still too late to leave now. Sima Ju muttered to himself, the matter of the big leader has already happened once. They will believe us. Guan Shuai, you don't need this. Sima Ju, I always thought you were the most sensible. Where can I go at this time? Give up the yellow turbans? It is impossible to defect to other princes. Guan Hai's brain is not as smart as Sima Ju, but he is the most aware of this matter. Does the future of our yellow turbans have to have someone die? Jiang Gong asked bitterly. Why do you have to do this? I didn't ask anything, I just thought it was worth it. Guan Hai's tone seemed to see through the vicissitudes of the world. Let's do our own thing. This matter is like this. I'm not here to inform you. I'm here to order you. Don't do stupid things. The treatment of our yellow turbans, women, children, old and young depends on your future performance. Guan Cheng knelt on the ground and bowed to Guan Hai 3 times. Then he stood up silently and walked towards the outside of the tent. He had already heard the irreversible firmness from Guan Hai's tone. Sima Ju and Huang Xiao also bowed to Guan Hai-san with tears in their eyes and left the big tent, and then all the yellow turban commanders were like this. In the end, he even cried loudly. The yellow turban was unwilling to be a bandit, but he was shackled by the original situation, and now he wanted to break away, so he could only watch one hero after another save the yellow turban with his life and drag it out of this cage. Guan Hai sat in the empty tent and sighed silently. He couldn't help but look back on the past, and after a long time, Guan Hai found that it seemed that since he became a yellow turban, in addition to protecting the yellow turbans, nothing good has been done. Oh. Guan Hai let out a long breath. Looking back on this life, he really hadn't done anything big. That's it, it's okay to die under Guan Yu's knife. Found a good home for the yellow turbans. It is better to die well than to starve to death or be killed by accident. Jiu listened to the sound from his stomach and couldn't help but sigh. Except for not being a full ghost, it seems that there is no regret. Ha ha ha. Guan Hai laughed nervously. After laughing for a while, Guan Hai felt a little desolate again, and then he heard a noisy sound outside the tent. Frowned slightly. Guan Cheng. Let Yuan Jian come in, don't block him, don't be ashamed of your brother, this is my own choice, it has nothing to do with Yuan Jian, you have to get along well after I die. Don't be joked. Guan Cheng, Du Yuan, and others heard Guan Hai's words, stared at Liao Hua before letting go of their hands, and as for the other commanders, they all endured the anger in their chests and made way for Liao Hua. What's the matter with Yuan Jian? Guan Hai sat on the main seat and yawned and said, if you don't eat enough, you will be sleepy, and your inner qi will be inevitable. General Guan asked me to bring 100 air-dried chickens, a cart of air-dried mutton, 3 air-dried pork, 1 fan of beef, and a cart of spirits. Liao Hua lowered his head and did not dare to look directly at Guan Hai, and the light on Guan Hai's body made him admire. Go, call all the brothers in and eat together. Although it was a farewell meal for me, there was no need to waste it like this. Guan Hai was happy, and as soon as he said that he couldn't be a full dead ghost, Guan Yu sent him wine and meat, and there was no extravagance. None of the yellow turban commanders came in. Guan Hai sighed, asked Liao Hua to pull the wine and meat into the tent, and then he ate silently by himself. For the yellow turban group, the secrets between the leaders are equivalent to the secrets between the yellow turbans, and the secrets of 70 or 80 commanders are equal to the secrets of all the yellow turbans. All in all, what Guan Hai just said yesterday, the next day more than 1 million yellow turbans have all known, and the yellow turbans from the poor masses have all the advantages of the working masses in history. That is, to repay kindness, although they don't know how to repay Guan Hai. But early the next morning, Kong Rong, who was hiding in Beihai City and did not come out, heard the overwhelming crying outside the city. Guan Hai was very upset. He wanted to wait quietly for the vigorous death to come, but he was done by millions of yellow turbans. Guan Hai's head was big, and death was so troublesome. Could he not cry? I'm a fool. Guan Hai sat in the big tent and thought a little crazy. I only now realize how wise the big leader is. I thought the big leader was also entangled in life and death and righteousness, but now I understand that the big leader is not entangled in these boring things. The big leader is to not see such a scene. The big leader, I admire your wit too much. With the release of his state of mind, although Guan Hai still admired the big leader, he was no longer as in awe as before. At least he was qualified to laugh at himself with the deeds of the big leader who made the same choice as the big leader. Guan Hai couldn't stand the noisy atmosphere outside. He already wanted to scold people. If he had known that this situation would happen now, Guan Hai felt that he must be like a big leader learning, and at the last moment he was explaining, and then left a bleak back of the wind is bleak and the water is cold, and the strong man is gone and will not return. I'm so stupid. I knew that my prestige and the big boss were almost the same, even if it was at the last moment, as long as it was mandatory, but now it's all about it. Guan Hai said to himself madly. Fortunately, Guan Yu didn't let Guan Hai wait longer, and killed outside Beihai City at 1 o'clock that day, and it was obvious that he was alone all the way, and the number was not large, so there were more than 2,000 cavalrymen, pulling a huge coffin to the outside of the yellow turban camp, and asking Guan Hai to come out by name. When Guan Yu didn't come, Guan Hai was waiting. When Guan Yu came, Guan Hai didn't kill directly to die as he thought before, obviously a little sentimental. No matter what kind of warrior he was, facing life and death, even if there was a huge reason, like Guan Hai did not collapse is already determined. Alas, the courage of the leader, I am far from comparable. Guan Hai went through all the joys, sorrows of his life in his mind. A tear slipped from the corner of his eye, and then got up from his seat, grabbed his spear with his right hand, grabbed the spirit he hadn't finished last night with his left hand, drank it all in gulps, and then walked out of the tent with a calm expression. Chapter 4:14 The Yellow Turbans Surrender. Guan Hai walked out of the tent with a spear and a calm face, and the yellow turbans who were originally surrounding the tent automatically gave way to Guan Hai, so he silently watched Guan Hai and followed Guan Hai towards the outside of the camp. Riding the jujube red horse sent by Guan Yu, Guan Hai rushed out of the camp as soon as he pulled the reins. The yellow turban commanders behind also tried to catch up, and a few hundred meters away was the place where Guan Yu and his party of cavalry were standing. Guan Hai, you are really a believer. Guan Yu felt from a distance that was not weaker than Hua Xiong's inner energy, and when he saw the other party fighting alone, Guan Yu understood that the other party was the Guan Hai that Liao Hua said. Guan Hai pulled the reins when he reached Guan Yu's place of more than 100 steps, and clenched his fists at Guan Yu. General Guan, I heard that you are strong in martial arts. I think Guan Hai also has this inner qi. I hope the general can fight me, and it is best for the general to come up with the strongest tricks and let me see it. Okay. Guan Yu Danfeng opened his eyes and glanced at Guan Hai up and down. His favorite is this kind of trustworthy person, especially Guan Hai's current calm death spirit is very appetizing to Guan Yu, so Guan Yu, who originally planned to save Guan Hai, did not hesitate at all. Mentioning his Qinglong Yang Yu knife, Guan Yu stroked his beard with his left hand. Guan Hai, I have a trick called Qinglong Yang Yu, and I once cut off the Leilang city wall with this move. Guan Hai, you should be careful. After saying that, he only heard a dragon roar. Guan Yu suddenly burst out with a blue light, and the sword spirit also flew out of the Qinglong Yang Yu knife, and a green dragon directly bit the blade head, and the dragon body was wrapped around the entire long hilt, and the originally flowing spring breeze stopped. With Guan Yu as the center, it rolled upside down, and the entire kilometer felt a depressing atmosphere. This is my power. Guan Hai, take the move. Guan Yu roared. As soon as he pulled the reins, he rushed directly towards Guan Hai, and the person who was going to do it didn't know it, so it looked at these three knives. Guan Yu, who was holding the Qinglong Yang Yu knife upside down, pulled an extremely long phantom and rushed towards Guan Hai without any concealment. On the other side, although Guan Hai came with the determination to die, he also wanted to see what kind of strength he had in this world, so he naturally mustered up all his inner energy and stabbed a shot flatly. Well done. Guan Yu laughed in his heart. What he feared most was that Guan Hai would commit suicide when he came up, or he would either come to be killed, so that Guan Yu would want to save Guan Hai. It is impossible not to be exposed. Guan Hai's grab seemed to have divine help, and it was extremely coincidental that it hit the blade of Guan Yu's knife, and it happened to deflect Guan Yu's blow, and the blow with great destructive power directly opened a hole of nearly 100 meters on the ground. Then pieces of gravel and slag flew into the sky. In an instant, smoke and fog enveloped the entire battlefield. The vast majority of yellow turban commanders could not see the scene inside. Guan Yu missed a hit, not discouraged at all, and the horse was cut again. Guan Hai once again pushed away the attack like a god possessed, and on the earth, Guan Yu cut out a huge wrong number of hundreds of meters with two swords centered on the location where Guan Hai drove the horse. However, 2 consecutive attacks on the earth have already made the entire battlefield filled with dust, at least if there are no civil officials to blow away this sand. No one could see clearly when they were present. Guan Hai, take my last move. Guan Yu shouted out from the dust. Then there was a dragon roar, and a huge blue light blade burst out of the dust, and with a roar, no more sound came out of the battlefield where Guan Yu and Guan Hai were fighting. I don't know which yellow turban cried out first, and then there was a sound of the great commander is good in the entire yellow turban camp. A gust of wind swept by, and the 2 people who were fighting on the battlefield only stood in the center of the battlefield with Guan Yu driving a horse, while Guan Hai fell to the ground, the spear was stuck in the ground, and the jujube red horse stood alone beside Guan Hai. Wei Yang and Guan Ping, who had arranged for Guan Yu early, quickly ran over carrying a huge coffin, put Guan Hai, who had not seen a single wound on his body, into the coffin, and then closed the coffin lid, saying why there were 2 air intakes at the bottom of this coffin. What was the situation? You wait for the yellow turbans and listen. My lord Liu Xuanda respects the righteousness of Guan Hai. You wait for the mistakes of the past and will not blame the past from today onwards, and you will also return to my great Han people. However, if you dare to commit another offense in the future, you will not show mercy. Guan Yu's words spread for more than 10 miles like thunder, so that most of the yellow turbans heard Guan Yu's words, and suddenly millions of yellow turbans cried and laughed for a while. I beg General Guan to allow me to sacrifice the great commander. Du Yuan took off all his weapons and knelt down in front of Guan Yu and said, even if Du Yuan was clever, he never thought that Guan Hai was not dead. It's right. Guan Yu glanced at Du Yuan. Probably because he saved a righteous man, he was in a good mood, although his words were majestic, but not cold. Guan Hai will also enter the jingling hall, and when the time comes, you can sacrifice together. Thank you, General Guan. Du Yuan solemnly knocked on Guan Yu. Guan Yu sighed and glanced back at the huge coffin. He knew very well that Du Yuan was not knocking on himself, but Guan Hai, who he thought was dead, just like Zhong Bie at the beginning. The big leader incense will never end, and it is really worshipped at all times, and it is estimated that Guan Hai will also enjoy this treatment in the future. After that, what happened was exactly the same as the situation after the death of the leader. Under the great prestige of Guan Hai, the Yellow Turbans calmly accepted the management of Mount Tai, quietly waiting for the rescue of Mount Tai, not to mention that the people's hearts were full, at least they would not be incited. In May 193, Guan Yu pacified Qingju, and reclaimed wasteland with Xia, remeasured the land, distributed it to the poor, and began to bulldoze various cities that did not meet the specifications for reconstruction, and a large number of people who had just been intimidated entered the period of work in lieu of relief. Building cities, digging rivers, reclaiming wasteland, building residential areas, and building roads, according to the plan of Chen Shi and others. A large amount of materials were invested in the land of Qingju, and a large number of strategic materials that were originally stored were once again exhausted. However, Chen Shi, who had returned to Mount Tai at this time, looked at the empty warehouse in a much better mood, and the materials saved for more than 2 years were all invested this time, and after the summer grain harvest, Liu Bei no longer had to worry about food problems for a short period of time, and finally he could officially prepare to sweep the world. Looking at the drizzling rain in the sky, Chen Shi silently stepped out of his hand. He had already determined that his spiritual talent was estimated to be as he had guessed. Only Liu Xuanda's rule was not a great drought, although it was not a good weather, but it was not a disaster year. Chapter 4:15 Yuan Shao enters the game. The submission of the Yellow Turban meant that there were no hidden dangers within Liu Bei, and all the princes who learned this information were silent, and Guan Hai's righteous act shocked all the princes, and also made all the princes give birth to a feeling that Liu Bei was the reincarnation of Liu Xiu. At the beginning, Emperor Guangwu was so lucky. From a declining royal family to the rapid rise, all directions came to vote, and then settled the world, and Liu Bei seemed to repeat this process. First millions of yellow turbans came out of Qingju, the big leader knelt down, and then took Qingju. Guan Hai went to death, all of which were the people's hearts. The territory is not important, the important people's hearts. Yuan Shao was angry when he learned this information, and when he reached their level, the territory, or something, as long as he wanted to make a big peace in minutes, but the people's hearts of the occupied land were the biggest problem. Seeing that Yuan Shao is fighting Yuju so smoothly now, but how many of the people of Yuju really surrendered to Yuan Shao? Suppressing internal rebellion is what Yuan Shao has spent the most effort on now, and he wanted to peacefully accept Han Fu's Jizhou with the strategy of Ju Shou, but in the end Guan Chun's gang rebelled. This is still a protege of the Yuan family, otherwise the turmoil will be even greater, and now the newly occupied Bingju and Yuju are rebelling here today, and there will be dissatisfaction there tomorrow. After all, Gui Yuan and others who Sun Chen was lost there in Bingju had already mastered how to win the hearts of the people, and how to win the hearts of the people in Bingju. Sun Chen used facts to teach Gui Yuan and the high-ranking officials that one-word fight. When this fight is not to let Gui Yuan and others beat the people of Bingju. Instead, fight north, regardless of what species will be encountered in the process of going north. As long as it is not Han Chinese, they will be wiped out on the spot. Fighting all the way north, the largest state of the Han dynasty was beaten out again. By the way, I forgot to say that the largest state in the Han dynasty was Bingju, not Yangju, but there was a bit of a problem with the boundary division of Bingju. All in all, because of this Hu and Han contradiction that has existed since the spring and autumn Jin period. It seems that the Hu people at that time referred to the Donghu, but no matter what kind of Hu people it was, the hatred between the two sides had lasted for 1,800 years. Then Sun Chen's approach was to completely oppose this contradiction, so that Yuan Shaojun would integrate into Bingju as a hero in the north. Although the method is a bit bloody, the effect is indeed very good. At least now the people of Bingju have accepted Yuan Shao's rule, although there were occasional rebellions. However, the laws formulated by Sun Chen are exempt from punishment for the rebels, and the rebels can be exempted from punishment as long as they go to the north to hunt the Hu people, protect the frontier, and obtain the recognition of the border people, which is a very loose management method. As for the development of agriculture or something, Sun Chen has given up everything. After all, there are not enough seeds and tools for agriculture, and there is no scientific planting method. It will not be effective in a short period of time. At that time, Sun Chen and Qian Fengyi, who were the makers of the Bingju conquest plan, combined that there was killing, burning and looting in Bingju to grow grain and have quick results. North of Bingju, there are 5 or 6 million Hu people, while training troops, while robbing, Gongsun Zon can grab a white horse righteous follower. How can their Yuan Shaojun also make a Bingju wolf cavalry? In other words, the cavalry is really a good thing. As for cavalry training, Sun Chen and Qian Feng did not hesitate to choose to oppose the contradiction between the Hu people and the Han people, who has so much time to train cavalry. It is really the same as Cao Cao thought. Liu Bei has a horse, there is a cavalry? What are you kidding? Most of the cavalry in Liu Bei's hands can only be said to be infantry on horseback, and how many generals' troops really fight on horseback? In short, Sun Chen and Qian Feng relied on the opposition between the people of Bingju and the southern Xiongnu and the Xianbei to make Yuan Shaojun a hero of the frontier, and then a large number of good men in Bingju who could ride horses joined Yuan Shao's army. The rest is not a matter of Sun Chen and Qian Feng. Killing, burning and looting can be said to be the professional skills of many generals. No matter the color of the horses to grab horses everywhere, it doesn't take much time to save 1 or 2 cavalry legions. As for Yu Ju, the deeds of Bai Ma Yi beating the Hu people from Gongsun Zon are still circulating, and it is not so easy to get things done. Because of this, Yuan Shao was very unhappy that Liu Bei easily pacified Qingju. Gongyu, how is Yuan Hao and Yuruo's side? We cleaned up the yellow turbans in Montenegro earlier than Liu Xuanda cleaned up the Qingju yellow turbans, and now Liu Xuanda has gathered the people's hearts of the yellow turbans in Qingju. Is there any good progress on our side? Yuan Shao was very dissatisfied and asked Zhu Shou. Yuan Shao was too lazy to care about the previous 100,000 stones of grain. The Montenegrin army has not made much progress. Zhu Shou said with a wry smile. He only informed Yuan Shao about the yellow turbans in Montenegro yesterday, when Yuan Shao also asked him to take his time and not leave hidden dangers. But now it looks like he was provoked by Liu Bei and wanted to compete with the other party. Her Yuan Shao let out a long breath. It's me who is a little impatient. War can't be rushed. Once you start to be anxious, you will make mistakes in your business. Liu Xuanda has gathered Qingju. I still want to drag him back. Do you want to watch him develop now? The Lord is wise. Zhu Shou saluted Yuan Shao. I have a secret letter from Liu Xuanda's close minister Li Wenru here. Wise. Yuan Shao snorted dissatisfiedly, and then said to Zhu Shou, Li Wenru? Why haven't I heard of this person? His secret letter. What did he want to do? Intuition told Yuan Shao that this could be a good opportunity. Zhu Shou gave Shu Yu a look. Yuan Shao was in charge of the information on Shu Yu's side. Shu Yu got up and recounted all the information he had specially collected during this period of time, and Yuan Shao smiled as he listened. Ziyuan, you, why didn't you tell me earlier if you had such good news? Yuan Shao pointed at Shu Yu and laughed and scolded. When he was a child, he didn't have to worry about too much scruples about the courtesy of the monarch and his ministers. After returning from Mount Tai, I have been worried that there is fraud, so I ordered me to verify it in many ways, so I have not dared to disturb the Lord, but I have confirmed that Li Wenru can be used after half a year of verification. Shu Yu said with a smile. Zhu Shou's caution made Shu Yu a little helpless. In fact, 3 months ago Shu Yu felt that there was no problem, but Zhu Shou asked him to continue to observe, and for the sake of caution, he studied carefully for another 3 months, and finally determined that Li Yu could be used as a pawn of their Jizhou corruption Liu Bei. How can such a big thing be careless? In case there is fraud in it, it will be difficult to calculate the loss of that one. Zhu Shou still maintains his cautious attitude, but Li Yu is also a ruthless person, and he is stunned and pretends to be seamless. Should he say that he is worthy of being in charge of household registration? 9 out of 10 spies in Jizhou are clear cards for Li Yu, and the remaining one is in the game even if he is not sure.
Chapter 416 Cao Cao, Le Bu, Yuansu.
In other words, the household registration plan of the Ming dynasty made by Chen Shi is too high-end for this era. At least although Zhu Shou and Shu Yu can be regarded as first-class in terms of intelligence, none of them have ever thought that all the information under their command is false information specially sent by Taishan. All in all, Li Yu and Lu Su are very cumbersome because there are too many things, and the initial promotion of the new version of household registration is very cumbersome, so the only place where the household registration is really promoted is Taishan County, and Qingju is still in a gradual state. However, this semi-finished household registration is enough to pit the intelligence organization that Shu Yu has finally built. After all, Shu Yu investigated Li Yu, and Li Yu has no previous relevant records, and the only thing that can be investigated is Li Yu's arrival. Li Yu basically did not leave Mount Tai, and the intelligence organizations that Shu Yu could mobilize were all informants in Mount Tai, so Li Yu deliberately released fake news, and then asked Lu Su to count the informants in the back, and was stunned to touch the intelligence organization that Shu Yu had finally established through a transparent way. So much so that after Jioshu got the news, he transferred the intelligence organization to Lu Su first, so that Lu Su took advantage of Shu Yu's opportunity to probe about Li Yu's intelligence and put a lot of spies in it, saying that Jioshu was already waiting to fully receive the intelligence organization of Jizhou, and the self-righteous use like Shu Yu would sooner or later be fully grasped by Lu Su to the next level of information. Yuan Shao read the secret letter sent by Li Yu, frowning. Gong Yu, you are too cautious. How much can a mere fragrant car beauty lose, as long as you can corrupt Liu Xuanda, who in this world can stop my pace? Unfortunately, now this Li Wanru has been forced to Zuzhu by Chen Zichuan and others. Chen Hanyu and Chen Yuanlong are all famous ministers in the country. There is also the suppression of Chen Zichuan and others above, and this Li Wanru is afraid that there will be no more steps to enter, so the chess pieces are wasted in vain. Yuan Shao's words were obviously a little depressed, but he did not blame Zhu Shou too much, and Yuan Shao still recognized Zhu Shou's caution, but this time he missed a good opportunity, and Yuan Shao could only sigh secretly about this. Chen Zichuan's group of people are not fuel-efficient lamps yet, and a sycophant has just appeared inside, and it didn't take long for them to seize the opportunity and kick him out. And the water is not revealed. Lord, Li Wanru has nothing to do. It doesn't mean we have nothing to do. Just take this opportunity to let Li Wanru completely fall to us. Shu Yu touched his beard. There was a hint of pride on his face. Chen Hanyu and Chen Yuanlong are indeed famous ministers in the world, but they pay too much attention to their own 1/3 of an acre of land. This is too much for Shu Yu, a character who is waiting for the world to operate. Ziyuan is right, this time not only to let Li Wanru completely fall to us, but more importantly, let Li Wanru no longer stay by Liu Bei's side as an incompetent close minister, but solve the troubles in Zuzhu and become a hot capable minister under Liu Bei, so that after Li Wanru returns to Mount Tai. If you want to keep your position, you have to rely on us even more, and the influence on Liu Bei will be greater, Zhu Shou said with a smile. He, Shu Yu, and others have already made a plan to assist Li Yu in returning to Mount Tai. Ha ha ha, Gong Yu, Ziyuan, thanks to you, otherwise, I might have to pass such a great opportunity. Okay, this matter will be left to the two of you. As for the plan to corrupt Liu Xuanda and make him and his advisors oppose each other, I have no shortage of fragrant cars and beauties in Jizhou. Yuan Shao laughed. He was not stupid, and when Shu Yu and Zhu Shou mentioned this, he instantly understood that the easiest way to prove a person's ability was to do a big thing. It will live up to the high expectations of the Lord. Zhu Shou and Shu Yu bowed their hands to Yuan Shao and said, neither of them took it to heart about helping Li Yu sweep Zuzhu. What they wanted was how to help Li Yu get rid of this matter unknowingly, and let people not see the many hidden dangers that appeared in Zuzhu after solving this matter. At the same time, Lu Biyu and Cao Cao also received the situation of the surrender of the Qingju yellow turbans. Compared with Lu Biyu's disdain, Cao Cao, who had been exhausted recently, was countless envious of Liu Bei and turned into a sentence, alas tilde. There is no way, whether it was the Qingju yellow turbans who went out to eat, or the last prophet from Qingju was Cao Cao. More than 2 million yellow turbans selected 300,000 young men, known as Qingju soldiers. Although because of the abandonment of women, children, old and children, the yellow turbans were dissatisfied with Cao Cao, and the military discipline was somewhat chaotic. But no one could deny that these 300,000 Qingju soldiers were important to Cao Cao. As for this world, most of the heads were all confiscated by Liu Bei, and because of the early action, and the reserves of food and other materials were sufficient, the benefits were much more than that of Cao Cao at the beginning. You must know that Liu Bei in this life was even received by women, children, old and children, and there were big leaders Xian Jiao, and the great leader Guan Hai successively guaranteed them, and there was no Cao Cao and some yellow turban commanders who were not accepted by women, children, old and children. You must know that after Cao Cao conquered Qingju, in order to exterminate Chu Gong, Sima Ju, Jiang Gong, Huang Shao, and others, Xiahou Yuan and Xiahou Dun made repeated attacks until 196, and it was not until 196 that they barely exterminated all those yellow turban leaders who did not surrender. As for Liu Bei in this life, he almost fully accepted the power of the Qingju yellow turbans, and the 300,000 Qingju soldiers could come out as long as Liu Bei did not pick or choose, and most of the yellow turban leaders who were exterminated by Xiahou Yuan and Xiahou Dun in history were basically all preserved. Having said that, it is probably not easy for 1 or 2 internal qi to leave the body among this group of yellow turban leaders, but the lineup of 60 or 70 qi refinement is enough to scare many people. What's more, this group of yellow turban leaders all have experience in leading troops, not to mention bringing thousands of people. At least any of these people with 500 people will definitely not have the slightest problem, so that as long as a little training is carried out, Liu Bei has enough middle and low-level generals. Liu Xuanda seems to be destined to be, first Shen Jiao, then Guan Hai. I thought it was just Liu Xuanda's scheme before, but now I think there are heroes in the yellow turbans. Cao Cao stood on the city wall, and Jian Wei stood behind him, looking at Lu Bubing who was slowly retreating, and Cao Cao muttered to himself, Lord, let's hurry back to the government office to rest. I'm afraid there will be a slaughter tomorrow. As long as there is a drought for more than 10 days, we will win this war. Shi Jizai coughed and bowed to Cao Cao, and the battle with Lu Biyu finally turned into a full-scale retreat to Chen Liu,
relying on the city of Chenliu County to barely block Liu Biyu's attack, but it was really reluctant. Cao Cao sighed. He was now barely able to stabilize the situation. Wan Qingdu she took the risk of cutting off Yuan Shu's grain and grass, and then dug Yuxie when the springtide was just rising, which was a great defeat for Yuan Shu, so that Cao Cao could free up his hands to mobilize the few troops left in Wanqing to Chenliu to block Liu Biyu. Chapter 4:17 Trouble is coming. After this battle, Yuan Shu was seriously injured, and it is said that the reason for Yuan Shu's vitality injury was not because of how many soldiers died, but because his son Yuan Yao was too excited in this battle, and he was a little injured when he charged into battle, and then Dushi dug Yuxie, and when the water flooded Yuan Shu, Yuan Yao did not escape fast enough, and the wound saw water, and then he has been feverish until now. Yuan Yao was Yuan Shu's only son. His son became like this, coupled with the serious losses of the army. Yuan Shu did not have the idea of continuing to fight Cao Ren, so he transferred his troops back to Shouchuan, along the way ginseng, Ganoderma lucidum and various tonics to feed his son, and then passed by a Taoist temple to donate some money for his son, but Yuan Yao's situation has not improved. Having said that, there were a lot of unreliable doctors in ancient times, so why can 1,000-year-old ginseng plus Ganoderma lucidum be eaten indiscriminately? In other words, if Yuan Yao hadn't had the internal energy poured in by Sun Ce as the bottom, not to mention anything else, it would be enough to take Yuan Yao away just by not being replenished. This unlucky child, I really don't know how to evaluate it. In addition, Yuan Shu loved his son eagerly, and asked the doctor to die if he couldn't cure it, resulting in none of those doctors daring to try non-tonic treatment methods. In short, the tonic is given to people who are weak and not supplemented when they are inflamed and fever, and it is already lucky that they have not eaten to death, which shows that the doctors Yuan Shu meets now are basically quack doctors. But it's right to think about it. In this era when doctors are cheap, the trust of high-ranking families in doctors is basically non-existent, and when they get sick, they donate some money, and then find a doctor who they look down on to see a doctor, which is naturally not good. Then there is a vicious circle, and the status of doctors is equivalent to having no status. In short, when Chen Shi, who was sitting in the Fenggao Government Affairs Hall, saw this information, he was in a good mood, except for Cao Cao, who was not dead. Other news simply made Chen Shi extremely satisfied, but for Yuan Yao, Chen Shi was obviously a little weird. If I remember correctly, Yuan Yao should have lived until the founding of the Wu Kingdom, but now the information coming over is that Yuan Yao may die at any time. As for Sun Ce's information, it seems that there is nothing more than Xiao Qiao, but to Chen Shi's surprise, Xiao Qiao is really Qiao Gong's clan. Although she is not a daughter, according to Qiao Shen's last words to Cao Mengde when she died, my family will be taken care of by you in the future. My daughter has also been entrusted to you. Cao Cao is the original wife. According to this period, some celebrities were bored, or because of their death, or because of their own death, or to renew their friends or something. Will entrust the women and even daughters of his clan to his friends. It's almost as a concubine or something. Qiao Shen's meaning is very clear. In short, the current situation seems to be that Sun Ce and Zhu Yu ate Cao Cao's dishes, although Cao Cao didn't know, but many years later, he would definitely know. The sentence Lan Erqiao in the southeast should not be Cao Cao's raw after learning the facts. Of course, the above are all Chen Shi's delusions. What he is curious about now is that Sun Ce's Zhu Yu doesn't know what to think will actually go to fight Lu Jiang. Fighting Yang Zhu is the king, and after fighting Yang Zhu, he can force Lu Jiang to surrender by turning around. Now this situation is obviously unreasonable. Is there a conspiracy? Zijing. What do you think of this? Chen Shi's brain was a little unclear, but he still habitually asked Lu Su, who continued to deal with the household registration. What? Lu Su raised his head, and then took the things in Chen Shi's hand. Fight Lu Jiang? Lu family? Not good. Lu family? I forgot about the Lu family. Chen Shi's brain, which had not yet recovered from the gentle township, suddenly became clear. The Lu family is very important to us. How can it be taken down by Sun Bofu and Zhu Gongjin like this? Quickly convey the report to Xuan Degong, and order Gan Xingba to lead the navy to take all the Lu families to Qingju. Chen Shi said with a slight eagerness on his face, and then Chen Shi looked at the time when the information was sent, and his face suddenly turned blue. It's too late. Zijing, you write the order document. Hurry up and send it to Beihai. Be sure to let Xuan Degong get this news. I will go directly to Qingju port and order Gan Xingba to go to Lujiang. After the Zhuzhu incident, Liu Bei and his party returned to Mount Tai and received an urgent letter from Guan Yu. Guan Hai was naturally sent to Gan Ning, and then he must be sent to Ezhou, accompanied by Cao Jun prisoners, but Qingju Xinda, although the people's hearts have been solidified, but Liu Bei also needs Liu Bei to show his benevolence. Chen Shi did not go to Qingju in order to appease Chen Lan and Fan Jian, and naturally Liu Bei did not force it, but let Chen Shi lead Qingju, Taishan, and Zhuzhu as before, and then Liu Bei took Jioshu to Beihai.
Chen Shi didn't come to the government office at all for the first 5 days after returning to Mount Tai, and today was the first time he came, and as a result, such a big thing happened. The military situation is like fire, not for Lu Xun, but for the Lu family's shipbuilding technology. If it is only for Lu Xun, basically don't care, people can come over, but Lu Xun, who carried the bag and moved into Taishan, lost 90% of the value without the Lu family's shipbuilding technology. It's not that I look down on Lu Xun's problem, but the most important thing about the Lu family is shipbuilding technology, and without that technology, the difficulty coefficient of fighting Jiangdong will directly add 2 stars. That's all there is to it, but Zichuan, you'd better be careful if you do this. Lu Su also understood that the situation was urgent now, but he still deliberately added, how to say such a thing as private military power. Even if you are in a hurry to take power, it will leave a bad impression in the heart of the Lord, and this impression will remain for a lifetime, which is something that all superiors are taboo about. Don't worry, you just need to send the transfer order to the North Sea. The Lord's sword is still in my hand, as long as you can send it to the North Sea in advance. Chen Shi waved his hand. He also knew that this kind of thing was taboo, especially people in his position should be more careful, the so-called no fault is merit. Then I'll write a transfer order. Lu Su stared at Chen Shi, then took out a roll of paper and began to write, and finally hesitated to write his name as well. He and Chen Shi had been together for the longest time, so he knew Chen Shi better about the weak ***. Okay, after you write it, send it to Beihai quickly, and I'll transfer troops. After saying that, Chen Shi ran directly towards the outside of the government office. If he hadn't taken 5 days off, if he hadn't thought that there was nothing big recently, he wouldn't have made such a fuss. God knows whether Sun Ce has demolished the Lu family now, and it is impossible to send information from Lujiang for more than 10 days. After saying that, Chen Shi ran out, and then came back without running a few steps, and then threw all the seals and other things to Lu Su. Zijing, during the time I am not here, you will temporarily act as the government affairs of the 2 states. This time I may need to spend a lot of time. After Xiang and the others come back, they will still be implemented according to the previous plan. Chapter 4:18 Go Home. Chen Shi wrote as he spoke. After writing the transfer order, the seal was covered, and then the thing was put on the table and ran out quickly. Maybe it was too late. Lujiang was beaten down, and the Lu family only ran out of Lu Xun and Lu Ji, which really became a tragedy. After leaving the government office, Chen Shi quickly jumped into the carriage. Liu Bei's sword and himself were indispensable, and naturally he couldn't make a mistake in his busy schedule at this time, so he ordered the coachman to hurry to Chen's house. Why are you so eager, sir? Chen Shi pushed open the door, and then without waiting for old butler Chen to salute, he went directly to the middle hall of the inner courtyard, and the voice of old housekeeper Chen asking came from behind. I have something important to leave for a while. You remember to say hello to Jenna and Lana, and I won't say it in person. Chen Shi said without looking back, if he told Fan Jian or Chen Lan that he was leaving, although the two would not say anything, but those resentful eyes were enough for Chen Shi to drink a pot. Passing through the outer courtyard, rushing into the middle hall, then turning left to his study and taking out Liu Bei's sword, without waiting for Chen Shi to leave quietly, a voice came from behind. Husband, why are you so anxious? Chen Shi was just about to rush out of the study when Fan Jian appeared outside the door and asked with a curious expression, didn't you still say before that Mount Tai collapses in front but the color does not change, and the elk rises on the left but does not blink? Why are you so anxious today? I have something to do and may need to leave March. Chen Shi sighed and said, I really don't want to face the traditional and simple at this time. He has only been married for more than 2 months before, and he has been out for nearly 3 months. Then I have to go out again in just 5 days when I come back, and it's been 3 months. How could Chen Lan and Fan Jian, who had just gotten married, accept it? Husband. Fan Jian said dissatisfiedly. There is really an urgent matter this time. Chen Shi said a little embarrassedly, and then saw 3 more people coming outside the door. Chen Lan, Mi Zhan, and Zhan Mi. I've seen Chen Hu. Husband. The 3 of them saluted one after another, and then looked at Fan Jian curiously. It stands to reason that Chen Shi should not have come back from the government office at this time. Why did you come back so early? No. Are you here to find Jenna to study with Sai's family? Chen Shi glanced at the 3 of them, and his eyes stayed on Zhanmi for a moment. Then he asked knowingly, Cai, let's take a day off before going. Unfortunately, Cai Yang was closed from class today, so he let them go shopping or something. It is said to be a combination of work and rest. Chen Shi was speechless. He originally planned to let Chen Lan and the 3 of them take Fan Jian away. After all, Fan Jian would not make trouble in front of people, but what is the situation today? Well, since that's the case, I still have something to do. You let Jenna accompany you to go shopping. Whatever you like will be counted on my head. I still have something to do. Let's go first. After saying that, Chen Shi waved his hand and passed through the middle hall. Lana, you and Jane are at home obediently, and I will be back as soon as possible. Chen Lan's face turned pale, but she still bowed to this Chen Xieying. I wish you a victory. Marquis Chen, I want to go too. As soon as Chen Shi took 2 steps, Mi Jun quickly caught up, and she was now overnight at Xia Yang's place. And Xia Yang has not eased up because he was hit by Cao Cao, and many people can talk for a while. Every day, he took Mi Jun to learn piano, chess, calligraphy, and painting. It is said that Mi Jun has a good talent in this area, but Mi Jun's temperament and Xia Yang are completely different things. Mi Jun's temperament is called soft on the outside and the inside, and in reality, it is a good baby on the outside, but in fact it is a little devil. In her opinion, she has learned piano, chess, calligraphy, and painting, why she still has to be controlled by Xia Yang every day. But Xia Yang's indifferent and elegant demeanor and basically mature posture put Mi Jun under a lot of pressure, so she had to obediently obey Xia Yang's command. As soon as he was dragged by Mi Jun, Chen Shi felt a headache. Mrs. Mi or something and the current Mi Jun are definitely 2 people, not to mention anything else. Mi Jun's personality is somewhat similar to Sun Shangxiang. Should I say that I have not suffered a loss? I have not suffered? Chen Shi turned his head to look at the 4 people, except for Zhang Mi, who looked cold. The other 3 were eager to try. No, this matter is absolutely not good. Stingy. Mi Jun said with dissatisfaction and contempt. Can't you guarantee our safety? Yes, but no. Although it is not a big deal, if the commander does not abide by the rules of the barracks, how can he restrain a sergeant in the future? Why not? Mi Jun became even more dissatisfied. Chen Shi is no longer in a hurry to leave. Anyway, it is not bad for this quarter of an hour, because you are a woman. The reason for not is very strong, at least with the female precepts that Mi Jun is learning now. It seems to be incomprehensible, and Mi Jun immediately looked at Chen Shi angrily. Okay, since you know, then don't bother me, I'm leaving. Chen Shi waved his hand and said, without saying anything else, just take Mi Jun with him, and when he comes back, Mi Jun will definitely look at himself with a murderous eye. Don't. Mi Jun turned around and ran back, then pulled Junmi and ran over, pushing Chen Shi. Do you think system is cute? I'll give her to you, you can take me. Chen Shi looked at Junmi, whose face was already red, stretched out his hand to cover his face and sighed. You guy, get out of the way, you must not take you there. HMPH. Stingy. Mi Jun said dissatisfiedly. What should I do if I have to go? Absolutely can't go. Chen Shi sighed and said, don't think of any tricks to follow secretly. After I leave, I will mobilize 10 teams of urban management to watch over you. If you dare to fool my wife to join you, I don't mind letting her give you extra classes, and reiterate the female precepts. Junmi, give me a good view of Mi Jun. Oh, okay. Junmi, who was red-faced, replied softly. Compared with Mi Jun, Junmi was a really good girl. Traitor. Mi Jun watched with extreme dissatisfaction as her comrades-in-arms rebelled to Chen Shi's side. I heard my brother say, no, no, no. Without waiting for Mi Jun to speak, Junmi covered Mi Jun's mouth with a cold expression, then bowed to Chen Xieying, and dragged Mi Jun away directly. TSK, you stay at home, I'll be back as soon as possible. Chen Shi greeted Chen Lan and Fan Jian, only to see that the 2 of them bowed to Chen Shi, and then looked at Chen Shi silently. Junmi. Mi Jun was intentional. Chen Shi shook his head slightly while walking away. The shock was completely different from the shock when Jizhou first saw it, and now Junmi, beautiful is beautiful, but it does not have the charm of Jizhou when he first saw it. Alas, the original incense burned really well enough, that look is really just right, by mistake. Chapter 4:19 What I care about is you. Chen Shi went out and turned right, and before he left the inner courtyard, he met Zhuge Liang, who was dressed in a Confucian robe and had an indifferent expression, and he had a bit of wisdom. Kongming, you are not studying in the courtyard. What are you here for? Chen Shi calmed down and asked. He has always been lenient towards Zhuge Liang. Apply what you have learned, and when you hear that Chen who has an emergency, Liang is willing to take on 1 or 2. Zhuge Liang had a smile on his face, which made people feel very good. Don't Chen whose is called Shengfen. Just call me Zichuan. I plan to go to Qingju. You want to go too? Chen Shi raised his eyebrows and asked, very puzzled by Zhuge Liang, who was happy and unhappy to make such a decision. I heard that the yellow turban of Qingju has been decided, and what Liang has learned must be useful, and I don't know if I would like to give Liang a chance to recommend himself. Zhuge Liang's expression was still indifferent, and his unhurried spirit almost infected even Chen Shi. It's okay to take you, although he is a little younger, but in ancient times, there were 12 worships of Gan Luo, and you Zhuge Kongming will not be inferior to him. Since you are willing to go, then take you there,
but it is very likely that we are not going to Qingju. Chen Shi nodded. Unlike Mi Zhan's group of girls, he had almost no control over Zhuge Liang, just do what he loved.
Thank you, Zhuge Liang said with a fist at Chen Shi.
Chen Shi nodded and took Zhuge Liang away in the envious eyes of Mi Zhan and the other girls, saying that Chen Shi had never thought that Zhuge Liang wanted to follow him entirely to avoid the harassment of this group of people. It is said that since Chen Shi, Li Yu and others went to Zhuzhou, Zhuge Liang's Good Friday began. There was no boy in the inner courtyard of the Chen family except for Chen Shi and Zhuge Liang, and originally Chen Shi showed a good intention. Let Zhuge Liang also live in the inner courtyard, but when Chen Shi leaves, Mi Zhan. After Zhan Mi and others came, Zhuge Liang, who lived alone in the inner courtyard, began to be unlucky. Without Chen Shi's suppression, the inner courtyard, including the maids, had a lot of wild temperaments, and a group of people had no scruples about Zhuge Liang at all. In addition, after Li Yu left, Zhuge Liang could not stay with Li Yu as before, and he himself was too polite. Before Chen Shi came back, he couldn't propose moving out, so the past few months have actually been quite difficult, so in order to avoid being tossed for another 3 months, Zhuge Liang felt that it was better to go out with Chen Shi, and it was better to travel thousands of miles than to read 10,000 books. Zichuan, look at the sword on your waist. Are you going to transfer troops? Those who have the ability to provoke war at this time will not provoke. Those who are incapable dare not provoke. There can be no rebellion within us. Is there a problem? After Zhuge Liang got into the carriage, he glanced at Chen Shi and asked, because Duke Xuande is not here, I can only let me come in person to mobilize troops. Chen Shi sighed and said, we need to go directly to Qingju port and transfer Gan Xingba to Lujiang to save the scene. The Lu family is already in trouble.
Jiangdong Lu family?
Zhuge Liang asked puzzledly. Does this family have any connection with us? Chen Shi explained the whole thing to Zhuge Liang while thinking about how to solve the accident when the time came. After all, because of his carelessness, the information was 5 days late, so Lujiang might have been captured.
That's right.
Sure enough, as you often say, Gentle Township is a hero's tomb. This time you really did a little too much. For Zhuge Liang's rigorous personality, Chen Shi's mistake is almost unbearable. No way, you haven't gotten married yet, you'll understand later, but this matter has already happened, let's find a way to solve it. I hope it's not too late. If one is not good, we may still need to have a fight with Sun Bofu. Chen Shi sighed and said, what do you say about the character of Sun Ce? Without Ju Yu it is easy to deal with, but with Ju Yu, that is the protagonist template.
Sun Bofu? Isn't it Yuan Highway?
Zhuge Liang has been studying at home recently. Except for matters related to Cao Cao and Liu Bei, he has not had much contact with the general trend of the world, and he is obviously a little vague about the characters of all parties. Yuan Highway subordinate Sun Bofu, but compared to Yuan Highway, Sun Bofu is a talented person, and I am more optimistic about Sun Bofu. Chen Shi explained the relationship between Yuan Shu and Sun Ce to Zhuge Liang in detail and concluded. In this case, the best choice to deal with a person like Sun Bofu, who emphasizes faith, is actually to let Yuan Highway force him into a corner, and then the two sides break up, so that with Yuan Gong's power, it is not impossible to destroy Sun Bofu in a battle while his wings are not full.
Zhuge Liang was a little eager to try.
Obviously, Zhuge Liang, who has been practicing the art of war and political strategy at home, was released and wanted to soar into the sky. This probably won't work. If there is no Zhu Gongjin, this is a good way. With Zhu Gongjin, this method can only be calculated by his generals. Let's say so, Yuan Gongdong does not have an excellent strategist, although Ji Ling is a good general, but he is also difficult to support. Even if there is no Zhu Gongjin, it is impossible for Ji Ling alone to defeat Sun Ce. Chen Shi thought for a while and said, trying not to hit Zhuge Liang's enthusiasm as much as possible. Kong Ming, listen to me finish speaking. It's like this, Sun Bofu is a bit like Xiong Wang. Not only his personality is similar, but also his strength is similar, and more importantly, his courage is also similar. And Ju Yu is almost a perfect embodiment. Heart, courage, intelligence, ability, wrist, and wife are all the top in the world, and the most important point is that Sun Bofu is Zhu Gongjin's righteous brother.
And he absolutely trusts Zhu Gongjin.
Chen Shi said helplessly that Sun Ce's character had considerable flaws, but Ju Yu's existence made up for it.
That's right.
Zhuge Liang pulled a long voice. In fact, what he wanted to say more was how it was possible for such a perfect person to exist. That's the case. If I have the opportunity to show you the information about the two of them, then you will know how destructive these two people will be together.
Chen Shi comforted that Ju Yu was indeed powerful.
Zhuge Liang was silent. He was conceited that he was unmatched when he didn't come to Mount Tai before, but after coming to Mount Tai, he realized that the world was big, very big. Maybe Zhuge Liang can really look at the world when he becomes an adult, but that is only maybe after he becomes an adult. Not to mention that now he has not yet appeared on the stage of the world. This is an era when the stars shine, and the one in front of him is the most shining of them. Don't care about him. In another 6 or 7 years, when you are as old as him, you will be more dazzling than him. You are Zhuge Kongming. Chen Shi saw that Zhuge Liang's expression was different, so he said with a smile, although there is no Juyu in history without 3 qi, but Zhuge Liang's intelligence is still amazing.
Do you care about him? What I care about is you.
Zhuge Liang lowered his head helplessly and thought that the longer he had contact with Chen Shi, the more shocked Zhuge Liang would feel about Chen Shi. This situation, as if he knew everything in heaven and earth, made Zhuge Liang inexplicably give birth to a longing. He hoped that one day he would be like Chen Shi now, as if all the calculations in the world could not escape his palm. To be continued. Please search. The novel is better and updated faster.
Chapter 4: 20 Family Split.
Chen Shi didn't know Zhuge Liang's thoughts. If he knew, he would probably twitch with a smile, and all the calculations in the world couldn't escape his palm. I don't know how many times I've missed it from the beginning to now. If I hadn't been ready to mess up this matter every time, I don't know how many times I would have made a mistake. But it seems that because of this, people feel that they are preparing for a rainy day. After that, neither of them spoke any more, and drove east in an open-top carriage under the protection of Hua Xiong, and Lu Su's secret letter and the issued transfer document were also sent to Beihai as quickly as possible. All the way to the whip, there were hundreds of cavalry to protect, but there was no bloody cutting incident, so it passed through the Langya kingdom in a straight line to the territory of Qingju, saying that when passing through Zuzhu, Chen Shi had heard a lot of criticism of Li Yu's inaction. Of course, more of the families from all over the world jumped out again.
Your Zhuge family has moved?
Chen Shi asked puzzledly. Cao Jun did not go deep into Langya in this life, and the relocation of the Zhuge family was inexplicable.
Well, I moved, and the Zhuge family is gone.
Zhuge Liang inexplicably sighed that a huge Zhuge family would be torn in half because of the anger of his brother Zhuge Jin. What's the situation? I'm quite interested in your brother. Since Cao Cao is not a thing, you can come to us. I warmly welcome you.
Chen Shi asked puzzledly.
There is no need for the Zhuge family to move at all. Zhuge Liang sighed and told the original matter in detail. Almost Zhuge Jin was angry with his family's order, and directly rebelled against the family. In his words, whoever liked to go to Cao Cao's place would go.
Anyway, he won't go.
Although the Zuzhu incident was initially covered by Zunyu, the local families who paid attention to this matter knew the truth of the matter, and later came to Liu Bei's vigorous publicity. As well as Cao Cao's defeat, everyone thought that Cao Cao was finished, and those celebrities naturally lost their fear of Cao Cao, and they all jumped out to ask Liu Bei for credit and vigorously preached about this matter. In short, Cao Cao was completely black. This is also why Cao Cao obviously awakened his ability, but no one came to vote, because his reputation was almost ruined. Even Sima Lang is now depressed about his joining Cao Cao. If it weren't for Zhongyi, he would have slipped away now. Speaking of which, it came after Chen Shi absorbed the forces that flowed out of the Chen family. Liu Bei has also added some characters from the family who are not very cold, such as Zun Yu's third brother Zun Yang, and then Zun Yu. To say that these two guys are not weaker than Chen Kun's level in terms of ability, but these two guys obviously can't help the Zun family. The reason for this is that Zun Yu advocated that both political and legal thought have a premise, that is, teaching. It is referred to as political and legal education, which means that political and legal ideas must be understood by others before political and legal ideas can be mentioned, otherwise everything is empty talk. Zun Yang was dismissive of Zun Yu's idea of choosing a loyal and capable person to assist and support the Han dynasty after the success of the Han dynasty. In Zun Yang's words, who would have been so obedient at that time? The so-called loyalty is just a bargaining chip for betrayal, and it is difficult to deal with it when the time comes. It is better to find a Han clan relative from the beginning. Even if it is a representative of the Han dynasty, it will only be an internal matter of the Han dynasty. What is the matter of dying an emperor? Well, Zun Yang almost separated from Zun Yu because of this set of ideas, and the death of the emperor is not a big deal. Zun Yu absolutely cannot bear this kind of thing. In short, Zun Yang and Zun Yu were banned by the Zun family, but after Liu Bei's words on the altar came over, the Chen family flowed out all the guys who were close to Liu Bei's thoughts within their own forces without saying a word. In this way, the Zun family also packaged these two banned characters together and gave them to Liu Bei, along with a group of Zun family children who were similar to Zun Yang and Zun Yu. When Zun Yu came to report, Liu Bei he talked all night and asked him and Man Chong to engage in law. I have to admit that this guy has a deeper understanding of the law than Man Chong. As for Zun Yang, Liu Bei ordered him to manage Qingju Donglai and establish a port or something by the way. In short, relying on the same concept, Liu Bei's subordinates now have many capable ministers of the family who can get their hands on it. And then again, the family at the end of the Han dynasty is really quite magical, and even there are characters who dig their own walls. It should be said that the forest is big and there are all kinds of birds. Like Zun Yu,
who is obviously going to destroy the foundation of the family, can tolerate existence, and the family at the end of the Han dynasty really developed to the extreme, and I don't know which direction to develop. Obviously, the Zhuge family is like that. Zhuge Jin did not join Cao Cao, and if there was only one Zhuge Jin, it would be nothing. As soon as the Zhuge family's forces were launched, Zhuge Jin had to enter even if he did not want to enter Cao Cao, and then it was slowly softened over time. As a result, it was obvious that what happened to the Zhuge family in the end was not Zhuge Jin's rebellion, but a split led by Zhuge Jin. Zhuge Jin directly divided half of the Zhuge family's forces and took away with his like-minded people. He wanted to rebuild the Zhuge family. As for the previous Zhuge family, who had a big fist may not be. In this way, the group originally led by Zhuge Feng was embarrassed. The strength of the two sides was similar, and they couldn't fight a civil war of the Zhuge family. Zhuge Feng and his fellow clan totaled, and directly moved all the remaining clan to Jingzhou. The Pang family and the Huang family were there, and their Zhuge family could develop well. As for the lack of talents, Zhuge Feng's son Zhuge Dan was also a genius. Not as good as Zhuge Liang, not as good as Zhuge Jin. Isn't it just another 5 to 8 years? The Zhuge family can afford to wait. Zhuge Liang told the whole thing. Chen Shi just had a feeling. Zhuge Jin, this guy has a problem with his brain. He has been divided with the family. Why do you have to worry about the family bet? And how good is it to come to their Mount Tai? If you don't want to come, you can stay in Zuzhu, as Lang Yixiong or something. There is no problem at all. But what is this now? Awkward with the family? What's going on with your brother? Where is he now? By the way, and you, didn't you say that the Zhuge family is divided into 2 parts? Which one do you belong to? Chen Shi asked curiously. Zhuge Jin is also very valuable. It seems that I went to Yuzhou, and it is said that I still want to go to Sichuan. I belong to the Zhuge family, but I don't belong to any family. Zhuge Liang frowned and said. Chen Shi was stunned. Zhuge Liang also had a heart. After the family split, he actually wanted to rebuild the family. Should I say that the family children in this period had such a temperament? But that's fine. Since you don't belong to any Zhuge family, then work hard. Chen Zichuan is not short of money, but I'm still thinking of a way for the new family, and I can't help you if you want to fight. Chen Shi said with a smile.